Chapter 212. Lisa Chow's villa was very large. It was 3 stories high, and the area of the building alone was several hundred square meters. At night, on every floor, every room was lit up. In fact, there were only 3 people in the villa. The housekeeper, Mother Wu, had already returned to her small room and closed the door. She did not dare to meddle in the master's family affairs. In the splendidly decorated living room, Lisa Chow stood with his head down, like a child who was punished for making a mistake. Jiang LeCun sat on the sofa in front of him and said seriously, "Tell me that poplar fruit, what's going on?" Therefore, Lisa Chow honestly told him how he tricked Zheng Taiming into drinking, got him drunk, and tricked him into revealing Zheng Yujia's secret, including the process and the result. "That's how I found out that B*TCH Zheng Yujia has hooked up with someone else," Lisa Chow said. "Who is that poplar fruit?" Jiang LeCun frowned and asked. "Not anyone." When Lisa Chow saw that Jiang LeCun was beginning to shift her anger onto someone else, he secretly moved to the sofa next to her and sat down. He then said, "I've checked. He's just a poor guy from the countryside. Zheng Yujia, that B*TCH, helped him get business and pushed him onto the news. If it weren't for that, he wouldn't even be worth a fart. I don't know what that B*TCH Zheng Yujia likes about him," Lisa Chow said. "She doesn't like any man, right? It's not money, it's not power. When a woman likes a man for no reason, there are only 2 things." Jiang LeCun shook her head and said, "He is handsome and has a sweet mouth. What does that poplar fruit guy look like?" Although Lisa Chow didn't want to admit it, he still said, "His looks are okay, he looks like a dog." "That means he's very handsome." Jiang LeCun looked up at Lisa Chow and said, "But you don't look bad either. Your father and I have a good foundation. It's not impossible to fight for it." "She's possessed." Lisa Chow couldn't hold it in anymore and scolded. That pretty boy called Poplar Fruit already had a child, but she still shamelessly stuck to him. "I heard from Zheng Taiming, that silly brat, that Zheng Yujia has already made several trips to Yangcheng. Maybe she already belongs to that gigolo." "Is that membrane important?" Jiang LeCun said resentfully. "You married her just to find a backer for our family. What you wanted was this person and this identity. There are so many girls in the school, but I don't see you wasting any of them." Yes, Lisa Chow said submissively. "I also want to marry her, but Mom, you didn't see how she was today. She said that I can decide my marriage. I feel that she's already dead set on that pretty boy, so can we change her mind?" "Everything depends on effort," Jiang LeCun sneered. "If we can't persuade her with good intentions, then we'll use force. You're saying that you want me to find some drugs to do that to Zheng Yujia?" Lisa Chow said in excitement. "Can't you use your brain?" Jiang LeCun pointed at her head and scolded. "You've known Zheng Yujia for so many years. Do you think she's someone who would submit so easily? If you bewitch her, she'll find you the next day and perish together with you. If this method works, why would I need you to do everything possible to please her and catch up with her?" Lisa Chow withered. After holding it in for a long time, he said, "Why don't we directly talk to that old man in the Zheng family? I don't believe that he'll agree to Zheng Yujia being together with a man with a child. No, that's too troublesome, and there's no way to guarantee that Zheng Yujia will agree to marry you." Jiang LeCun shook her head and said, "Then what should we do?" Lisa Chow felt thirsty. He drank the hangover soup and felt that it was too sour, so he quickly put it down. Jiang LeCun asked, "We can't touch Zheng Yujia, but we can't touch that guy called Poplar Fruit." "That's right." Lisa Chow patted his thigh and said excitedly, "I can find a few people to beat him up until his mother can't recognize him. Without that face, I want to see if Zheng Yujia will still love him." "Are you stupid?" Jiang LeCun pointed her finger at Lisa Chow's head and said, "If you do it in China, aren't you afraid that you'll leave clues for others to find out? There are many pairs of eyes watching our family now. If anything goes wrong, won't it implicate your father?" "Then we'll do it abroad," Lisa Chow said. "I heard that they're going to America soon. If we send someone there, the emperor will be far away, and no one will be able to find us." Jiang LeCun nodded and said with praise, "That's right, they're going abroad. Just beating him up is making a mountain out of a molehill. When doing things, we have to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Just find a killer and kill Poplar Fruit. Kill him? Li Zichao was shocked and said in surprise. That's right. If he's dead, Zheng Yujie will be heartbroken, and then you can take advantage of it. Jiang Likun said. This. Li Zichao was a little hesitant. What are you afraid of? It's not like I'm asking you to kill someone. I have a secret website. You can just find a killer and give him the task, right? Jiang Likun said with dissatisfaction. What are you hesitating for? Do you want to watch Zheng Yujie be taken away by someone else, and then our family will become poor? Thinking about his Ferrari and his extravagant life, Li Zichao gritted his teeth and said, okay. After that, he got up and walked to the stairs. Jiang Likun, who was thoughtful, stopped Li Zichao and said, when you give the task, you have to make it clear. Don't kill Zheng Yujie by accident. It's best to wait until Poplar Fruit is alone before you kill him. Poplar Fruit still didn't know that his trip to America was being watched. He was now driving his brother and sister-in-law back from the military camp. At dinner, He Wenjue drank again. Ji Xiaoyan didn't let him drive no matter what, so he sat in the passenger seat and gave Poplar Fruit directions. Back in the city, Poplar Fruit knew the way. After he relaxed, he looked at Kiki from the rearview mirror. Kiki, who was sitting in the baby safety seat in the back seat, seemed to feel something. She looked up and saw her father's smiling eyes in the mirror. She opened her mouth and smiled. Poplar Fruit. He Wenjue was originally sitting with his eyes closed and taking a nap for 10 minutes. Suddenly he opened his eyes and said to Yang Guo, today Big Brother also saw how extraordinary you are. To be honest, you are proficient in both the pen and the sword, a dragon among men. Don't be modest. Today brother treats you as a brother. That's why I said a few words to you. He Wenjue didn't let Poplar Fruit interrupt and said, your kung fu is very good. There are not many people in our army who can be your opponent. But you have to understand that the stronger the ability, the greater the responsibility, not the greater the power. Brother doesn't want one day you think that your kung fu can surpass the law. Then, we brothers will have to fight each other. Brother doesn't want to see this scene. He Wenjue said seriously. If you have any difficulties, you can come to brother. In Guangdong province, brother's background can still come in handy. Remember, don't ruin your future because of a moment of anger. He Wenjue spoke to Poplar Fruit sincerely. Poplar Fruit could feel that his brother was doing it for his own good. He stopped the car on the side of the road and nodded seriously to He Wenjue and said, brother, I will remember. Okay. Hurry up and drive. You two brothers, what are you being sour about? Ji Xiaoyan smiled and said, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to buy the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 213. Spring in Yangcheng wasn't just full of flowers, it was also full of spring colors. Walking around the school grounds, there were already many girls who couldn't wait to take off their thick winter clothes and change into shorts and hot pants. There was a good saying on the internet. Girls, if you don't wear revealing clothes while you still can, you won't dare to show off in the future. Modern girls were generally very well developed. Wearing hot pants that could only cover their small buttocks and 10 centimeters high heels, their white and tender thighs were really enviable. The scenery in spring was already too beautiful to take in. This made people look forward to summer even more. At that time, the whole city would be filled with beautiful legs. Even the aesthetic would be tired. Poplar Fruit didn't sneak a peek. He was attracted by his cute daughter. How could he be in the mood to look at other girls? Today, Poplar Fruit combed Kiki's hair into 2 ponytails. Originally, Yang Guo wanted to tie her hair into a ponytail, but Chi-Chi's hair was not that long yet. After trying for a long time, she did not succeed. Thus, Yang Guo simply tied up the hair on both sides of her head, making it into a ponytail. He carried Chi-Chi to the front of the mirror. And when she saw her own strange ponytail, she also laughed happily. She even pulled her father's hand and pointed at her ponytail and said to her father, Chi-Chi, you've changed, turned into a dragon. She had recently watched the cartoon Journey to the West, and had a deep impression of the Horned Dragon King. Poplar Fruit smiled and patted Kiki's little head. That's right. Kiki is Daddy's little dragon girl. After saying that, he thought about it. This analogy wasn't right. His name was Poplar Fruit. It sounded similar to Yanggua. If he was called Kiki's little dragon girl, the relationship would be messed up. However, on second thought, it was just a novel. Who cares? Kiki was a little dragon girl. Daddy should be the great dragon king. Poplar Fruit walked on the school path, his arms lifting Kiki up and down, lifting and putting her down. Kiki screamed and laughed nonstop. Kiki loved this game so much that Poplar Fruit couldn't stop even if he wanted to. The moment he stopped, she would wrap her arms around her father's neck and cover his eyes with her hands to stop him from walking. She would shout, "Kiki wants to play." Poplar Fruit's heart softened as he looked at Kiki's cute pigtails and her clear eyes. It was fine if she was a little tired, as long as Kiki was happy. In fact, he himself quite liked Chi-Chi's carefree smile, and his mood was exceptionally bright just by looking at it. However, the happiness did not last long. Poplar Fruit felt a strange yet familiar feeling of being watched. Poplar Fruit frowned as he lifted Kiki. This feeling of being watched seemed to have been following him for many days. It would often inexplicably surge into his mind, and then disappear inexplicably. Poplar Fruit felt that this feeling of being watched was driving him crazy. It wasn't that he didn't try to find the source, but he just couldn't find it. Could it be that there was really something wrong with his brain? Poplar Fruit couldn't help but turn his head and glance at the road. There were so many people coming and going. There were so many people who looked like students walking on the road. It was very normal. How could someone be watching him? Papa. Kiki's clear voice pulled Poplar Fruit back from his thoughts. She was already impatient from waiting. Poplar Fruit touched Kiki's little head and smiled. He must be thinking too much. Let's go. The voices of the father and daughter disappeared around the corner. A figure holding a book and carrying a sling bag slowly turned around. He slowly put down the phone covering his ear, looked at the corner, and breathed a big sigh of relief. That was too thrilling. The strange man was scared by Poplar Fruit's sudden turnaround. Fortunately, he was well prepared today. He brought a book to pass the time, and it came in handy. Where did this target come from? The strange man shook his head and thought, "My sixth sense is too strong. After following him for so many days, how many times have I almost been discovered by him? Such a mysterious target. If it were in the past, he would definitely retreat 3 miles away." However, thinking of the box of bright red money, the strange man still walked unswervingly in the direction where Poplar Fruit disappeared. Wow. Fong Beibei came downstairs and saw Kiki's appearance. She could not close her mouth. Poplar Fruit raised Kiki to face Fong Beibei and smiled proudly. "How is it?" Kiki actually has braids." Fong Beibei suddenly changed her tone, stared at Poplar Fruit and said, "But it's so ugly." Oh. Poplar Fruit was almost choked to death by Fong Beibei's words. "How can you say that? I obviously spent a lot of effort to comb this goat horn braid so beautifully, okay?" Poplar Fruit said angrily. "It's not pretty, it's just not pretty." Fong Beibei carried Kiki over and said, "It's obvious at a glance. This braid is just grasped like this and then put on a rubber band. How much effort did it take? Kiki, tell me yourself, isn't it not pretty?" Fong Beibei hugged Kiki and coaxed. "Kiki, this became a dragon." Kiki pointed at her goat horn braid and happily said to Fong Beibei, "It's Papa." She wanted to express that it was her father who changed her, and proudly told her favorite sister Beibei. Poplar Fruit proudly raised his chin as if to say, "See, my daughter said it's pretty." Fong Beibei rewarded Poplar Fruit with a roll of her eyes. She walked in front, and Poplar Fruit followed behind. She kept persuading Kiki, saying, "Kiki, it's really not pretty. When we reach your house, Sister Beibei will braid a better one for you, okay?" Kiki babbled and praised her father to Fong Beibei, and then happily agreed to Fong Beibei's further transformation. Yes, Kiki wants it. It's so pretty. Poplar Fruit also knew that as a man, he really did not know how to braid Kiki's hair. The goat horn braid only looked fresh, but the beauty was still far from it. It did not even reach the most basic symmetry. I have to learn it well. Poplar Fruit decided that later. He would humbly ask Fong Beibei for advice. As Kiki grew older, her hair also grew longer. Poplar Fruit felt that it was more urgent to learn how to braid Kiki's hair. Looking at the methods on the internet was not as useful as Fong Bei's face-to-face teaching. Right, where's Goldie? Why didn't you bring it here? Fong Bei asked. Could it be that there's something wrong with Goldie, and you don't dare to tell me? Poplar Fruit sweated profusely and said, It's there. I have a brother who wants to borrow it today to accompany his mother. Don't worry, Goldie is still alive and kicking. With a bang sound, the door closed. Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei walked up the stairs. At this time, the strange man appeared from behind a big tree. Looking up at the stairs that Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei walked up, the strange man's face revealed a smile. He laughed and said to himself, I caught them. I knew that my premonition was not wrong. Today, I caught a big fish. He touched his chin and said, A rich man who can afford a Land Rover. At such a young age, he already has a beautiful woman in his left and right. It seems that money is really a good thing. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than or equal to. Chapter 214. Don't use a rubber band. If the rubber band is too thin, it will sink in and damage the hair quality. For Kiki's beautiful hair, you should use a thicker and softer hairband. After a demonstration, Fong Bei had already rearranged Kiki's braids. Then, she spoke to Poplar Fruit, who was holding a rubber band. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, Where can I find a hairband? I haven't bought one yet. Fong Bei thought for a while and said, Then don't braid the braids. Seeing her let go of Kiki's hair, and take off her hairband from her left hand, Poplar Fruit realized that the band on Fong Bei's wrist was an elastic band used to tie up hair. There was a furry cushion on it, and it looked like it had some patterns. He had thought that it was a decorative bracelet. Kiki touched her missing dragon horn, and babbled as she pulled Fong Bei's hand, wanting her to help get it back. Don't rush. Fong Bei rubbed Kiki's little head, and then gestured. She smiled satisfactorily and said, Just nice. Kiki has straight bangs and is suitable for a single braid. She pulled out a small tuft of hair from the top of Kiki's head, not too much and not too little. She pulled out the loose strands, straightened them, and then used a hairband to tie it up. After letting go of her hand, the braids fell back slightly. Fong Bei held Kiki's little face and examined it carefully. Then, she spread out the hair that had been combed behind Kiki's ears and covered them, spreading them out naturally. How is it? Does it look good? Fong Bei asked Poplar Fruit with a smile. Poplar Fruit nodded satisfactorily. This kind of braid was indeed beautiful. When paired with Kiki's innocent little face, it was very cute and made people want to pinch her chubby little face. At this time, Fong Bei's hand had already left Kiki's head. Kiki immediately reached out to touch it, and found that the dragon horn still did not appear. She panicked. As the saying goes, every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. She did not know who to look for, so she pulled Fong Bei's finger and looked at her father and cried, Where's the horn? Where's the horn? Although Kiki spoke with a childish voice, her pronunciation was very clear. Fong Bei had praised this more than once. Poplar Fruit said proudly, Otherwise, how could she be my daughter? What he meant was that his father's language talent was so high, his daughter would not be bad. Fong Bei hurriedly carried Kiki and walked to the toilet. She pointed at the mirror and said, Kiki, look, this is also a horn. Isn't this more beautiful? The two horns became one horn. Kiki opened her eyes wide and looked at it for a long time, before she could recognize herself. Yeah, Kiki is too beautiful, isn't she? Fong Bei lovingly stuck to Kiki's face and looked at Kiki in the mirror and praised. Woo! Kiki suddenly raised her two small hands, covered her eyes, and turned her head. She didn't mean to look down on Fong Bei. She covered her eyes because she felt embarrassed by Fong Bei's praise. That hearty smile and laughter had completely exposed her. Hee hee. Fong Bei also could not help but laugh. Poplar Fruit leaned on the door frame and quietly looked at the two of them. He felt that time was slowly and gently flowing. This air, it was as if a little honey was sprinkled and fragrant. Smelling it, he was about to get drunk. Class quickly. Class quickly. Fong Beibei was unexpectedly very enthusiastic. After putting down Kiki, she urged Poplar Fruit to go to class. "Why are you in such a hurry?" Poplar Fruit was confused and asked. "After class, we can continue to design the game during the break." Fong Beibei's eyes lit up and said, "Yesterday I looked up a lot of information and calculated for a long time. I finally figured out the formula to calculate the health distribution and balance of our game." So the ulterior motive was not in the wine. The motivation to rush to class was still to design the game. However, Poplar Fruit was still quite satisfied. The idea that he came up with was quite effective. No matter what Fong Beibei's motive was, as long as she was willing to put in the effort to learn English, then Poplar Fruit's goal would have been achieved. "Oh, is that so? What kind of formula is it?" Poplar Fruit casually asked as he tidied up the table, floor, and all the dangerous things in the room. The last time he was at the supermarket, he bought a baby walker. Kiki was not satisfied with staying in the baby walker all day long. Poplar Fruit planned to put her in the baby walker and let her run around the room by herself. Anyway, the baby walker was surrounded by a large circle of cars to protect it. Poplar Fruit was not worried that Kiki would hit the table in the baby walker. The main thing was to tidy up some heavy objects that might fall. He also had to close the door of the toilet, kitchen, and balcony to ensure that Kiki would not be smashed or run into dangerous places when she ran around. The baby walker was currently being pulled by Fong Beibei, but Chi-Chi's eyes were already sparkling with excitement. She was finally going to be able to run freely. "That's..." Fong Beibei said 2 words and stopped. Then she said, "Forget it, you won't understand even if I explain it to you. You just have to be responsible for designing the character." "I already have an idea." Poplar Fruit laughed. He was now more and more skilled at multitasking. Even if he went to the military camp to play for the whole day yesterday, he could still design the character based on the Warcraft background while shooting a pistol. Cough cough, don't think about it in the wrong way. Learning with motivation was always twice the result with half the effort. Not to mention there was Poplar Fruit, this monster teacher. He could adjust the content of the class according to Fong Beibei's comprehension speed and learning progress. Some of the PowerPoint slides were even changed on the spot. Although Fong Beibei often expressed disdain for this strange Uncle Poplar Fruit, she was just being stubborn. In her heart, Fong Beibei admired Poplar Fruit's attainments in English. Poplar Fruit, a prospective graduate student, had long left her professors in the British Empire class dozens of times behind in terms of ability. He was also so good at teaching. Although she had only learned for a day, she felt that her progress could be seen. In the past, when she had to memorize words, she would forget them in a blink of an eye. However, the dozens of words and grammar that Poplar Fruit taught her the day before yesterday were still vivid in her mind after 2 nights. When the class started, there was always an unstable element that kept disturbing them. That was the happy rampaging Kiki. She slipped and ran to Poplar Fruit's side. She stretched out her hand and couldn't reach her father's trousers, so she pushed the trolley and bumped into her father's feet. Fortunately, this mischievous little darling also raised her head after tossing around for a while. Her little mouth was slightly open as she looked at her father in class. She was completely focused. Yanghua inadvertently glanced at her and smiled. He really didn't know who was his student between her and Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit let Fong Beibei strike while the iron was hot. They studied for 2 hours in the morning, and then had a break at 11:30, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 215. Come on. Fong Beibei rolled up her sleeves and swept away the notebook and the information that Poplar Fruit gave her. She took out a draft paper and put it in front of her. She rubbed her hands and said, "Tell me about your character design." Poplar Fruit picked up Kiki, who was tired from running, and sat beside Fong Beibei. He said, "Actually, when I went back last time, I had an idea. Didn't we say last time that we wanted to design a character for the player's body?" Fong Beibei tilted her head, looked at him, and nodded. Poplar Fruit's eyes involuntarily drifted to Fong Beibei's rosy and soft lips. Fong Beibei just wrinkled her nose at him a little shyly, and did not show any expression of unhappiness. I'm thinking that we can actually define this body as a hero. Different heroes represent different professions and skills. Poplar Fruit said. It seemed that this was just a different name. Fong Beibei nodded indifferently. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, in the history of Warcraft there are many famous heroes. We can just choose one that is more representative for each profession. For example, mage. I want to choose Jaina Proudmoore. Many people would not know who this name was. In fact, she was the original form of the extremely popular Ice Maiden in Dota. Jaina Proudmoore was Dylan, the king of Kultiras, Proudmoore's youngest daughter. She and Arthas, the heir to the throne of Lordaeron, were actually lovers. However, because of internal conflicts and changes in the external environment, they always maintained a friendship. Later, she left Arthas, who was determined to fight against the undead and cut ties with Uther. She led her people across the sea and went to Kalimdor in the west. She allied with Thrall, the chief of the Orc tribe, and defeated the invasion of the Burning Legion. There was a very interesting thing. Even though the original novel didn't explicitly mention the ambiguous relationship between Gianna and Thrall, there were still some clues left behind. On the white punched card of the Gnomerigan, there was a binary number. If you changed it to hexadecimal and used ASCII code to decipher it, you would find that it said, Thrall and Gianna were sitting on a tree kissing. There were many heroes that Poplar Fruit chose for each profession. For example, the Druid, Poplar Fruit chose the Night Elf Malfurion Fury. The Warlock, the first warlock in the history of Warcraft, Gildan, and so on. Fong Beibei wrote down every word that Poplar Fruit said. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, you don't have to write it down. It's all in my head. Fong Beibei shook her head and said, I'm not as good as you. You said a lot. If I don't write it down, I'll forget it all later. How can I calculate it for you then? Poplar Fruit also came up with a new idea about the types of cards. He said, our cards are also divided into monster cards and magic cards. However, our cards are more unique than other cards. For example, our monster cards are called mercenary cards. Well, it's very vivid. Fong Beibei nodded and said, you can summon them to fight for you. Poplar Fruit stopped talking about the types of cards and smiled. What's more interesting is that I've decided to change the amount of mana into sapphires. Think about it, sapphires can represent both money and mana. This way, each player can only play cards according to the number of sapphires he has. In order to explain more vividly, Poplar Fruit gave an example. For example, if he has 10 sapphires this round, then he can play a magic card that requires 4 sapphires and 2 mercenary cards that require 3 sapphires. No matter how many cards he has, he can't play them all. Alright, I think we can call the magic cards spell cards. This is more in line with the name of Warcraft. Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention to Fong Beibei because he was deep in thought. He was still talking to himself. There's also the weapon card. The weapon card can equip a hero with a weapon. It can give a hero who doesn't have any attack skills the ability to attack, and make a hero who already has the ability to attack stronger. Don't be noisy. Fong Beibei picked up a pen and pressed one hand on Poplar Fruit's mouth. She said seriously, go and cook. I suddenly have an idea. I want to calculate. Poplar Fruit's mouth could clearly feel the delicate softness of Fong Beibei's hand. His heart couldn't help but waver. However, Fong Beibei didn't care about him. She retracted her hand and buried her head in the draft paper in front of her. Rustling sounds could be heard as she wrote down a series of formulas and numbers. She was also muttering terms that Yongwu couldn't understand. Even though Poplar Fruit had been honed to the point of perfection in language, he still found that there were some words that he couldn't understand. It seemed that language was indeed broad and profound. When it was taken apart, he could understand every word. When it was combined in a specific field, it became unfathomable. It just so happened that it was also time for Kiki to drink milk. Poplar Fruit stood up with the yawning Kiki in his arms. He took out a strap from the bag he brought, carried Kiki on his back, and walked to the kitchen. Of course, cooking was Poplar Fruit's strength. He could wash and cut vegetables while boiling water to make milk powder. He also took care of the soup on the stove and the rice in the rice cooker. It felt like he had 7 heads and 6 arms. Kiki didn't just drink milk today. She also wanted to eat some nutritious rice paste, so Poplar Fruit only made half a bottle of milk for her. Kiki, who had already narrowed her eyes, immediately became energetic when she smelled the fragrance of the milk. More. Kiki finished it in a few mouthfuls. She was still not satisfied. She raised the empty milk bottle high with both hands, and said to her father with her mouth open like a bird waiting to be fed, "There will be more later." Poplar Fruit coaxed with a smile. He didn't tell Kiki that there would be rice paste instead of milk later. Kiki was not interested in rice paste. Sure enough, when Poplar Fruit finished cooking the rice paste, she saw the bowl waiting for the wind to cool down. She shook her little head like a rattledrum, grabbed her father's clothes behind his back and said, No, I want milk." Poplar Fruit, who was busy cooking, ignored Kiki. After he finished cooking, he held the bowl and said to Kiki seriously, "I will give you milk, but you also have to eat some rice paste. You will only grow taller if you eat rice paste." Kiki turned her head and said, "No." She lowered her head and pouted, putting on a pitiful look. However, Poplar Fruit didn't appreciate it. In order to get more nutrition, Poplar Fruit wanted to change Kiki's diet slowly. How could he give up just because she said no? He held the spoon to Kiki's mouth, preparing to force Kiki to open her mouth and eat. Kiki still kept her mouth closed. In the end, her mouth was covered with rice paste. After being wronged for a long time, she finally couldn't hold it in anymore and cried out loud. This burst of crying was earth-shattering. It made people's hearts ache. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 216. When Fong Bebe heard the sound, she threw down the pen in her hand and ran over to hug Kiki. She coaxed, "Kiki, don't cry." Oh, what happened? Can you tell Sister Bebe?" Kiki leaned on Fong Bebe and wiped her tears with her small hands. She sobbed and said aggrievedly, "I want to drink milk." "Oh, Kiki wants to drink milk. Daddy won't let Kiki drink it, right?" Fong Bebe glared at Poplar Fruit and pointed at the rice paste on Kiki's mouth. Poplar Fruit understood and quickly passed a tissue over. Nodding, Kiki obediently let Fong Bebe wipe the rice paste on her mouth. There was still a slight nasal sound in her breathing. Fong Bebe continued to coax her. "Daddy is so bad. He won't let Kiki drink milk. Let's scold him, okay? Bad Daddy. Bad Poplar Fruit." Kiki was unhappy again. She grabbed Fong Bebe's shoulder and shook her head. "No, he's not a bad daddy." Poplar Fruit was stunned when he heard that. Kiki was still defending him at this time. In an instant, Poplar Fruit felt that his nose was a little sour. It seemed that there was something boiling in his tear ducts that was about to come out. Fong Bebe couldn't believe her ears. She always felt that Kiki was smart and cute. She felt pity for her and couldn't help but want to hug her. But she didn't expect that Kiki's feelings for her daddy were so deep. Kissing Kiki's tear-stained face, Fong Bebe praised, "Kiki is so obedient and sensible." Kiki cried for a while and was hungry. She pitifully said to Fong Bebe, "I want to drink milk." Rice paste did need to be eaten. No matter what Kiki said, Fong Bebe knew that she couldn't let Kiki drink milk willfully. But Fong Bebe didn't directly refuse. She sat down at the table with Kiki and began to persuade her. "Kiki, it's not healthy to only drink milk." Fong Bebe hugged Kiki and said softly, "Do you want to go out and play with Sister Bebe?" Kiki didn't quite understand, but she still knew that it was a very happy thing to be with Sister Bebe. She hesitated for a moment and nodded. "If you want to go out and play with Sister Bebe, then Kiki has to grow up quickly," Fong Bebe said. Looking at Kiki's ignorant eyes, she smiled and gestured. "Eat this, Kiki will grow up quickly. At that time, Sister Bebe can take Kiki to go shopping and buy beautiful clothes." Fong Bebe took the rice paste from Poplar Fruit's hand and said. Chi-Chi lowered her head to look at the rice paste, her eyes revealing an expression of wanting and not wanting it at the same time. "So tangled." Fong Bebe added fuel to the fire and said, "Plus, you'll grow prettier and prettier. You'll be as pretty as Big Sis Bebe." She scooped up a bit of rice paste with a small spoon, and held it in front of Chi-Chi's mouth to see her reaction. Kiki hesitated for a long time. Finally, she opened her mouth and put the spoon in. Eat slowly. Fong Beibei was worried that the spoon would hit Kiki's teeth, so she took it out very slowly. When Kiki finished chewing and swallowing the rice paste in her mouth, she gave her the second spoon. Fong Beibei still has a way. Poplar Fruit, who was next to them, sighed in his heart. It was much better than using music to trick her into eating, or using coercion and bribery. It seemed that Kiki would be obedient and eat obediently in the future. He didn't have to go through so much trouble every time. After feeding Kiki this small bowl of rice paste, the dishes would probably be cold. Poplar Fruit took the cooked dishes back to the iron pot where there was still some heat to keep them warm. He waited for Fong Beibei to eat together. What were you calculating just now? Poplar Fruit asked Fong Beibei curiously when they were eating. Fong Beibei said, "Didn't you just mention the sapphire? That suddenly gave me an idea." It turned out that Fong Beibei was a little confused when she was looking at the gameplay of the Yu-Gi-Oh card game yesterday. In Yu-Gi-Oh, if there was a block, one could summon an unlimited number of monsters. If the player drew a card with strong attack power, it would instantly change the situation. In this case, luck sometimes became the master of the game. Although it was impossible to avoid the X factor of luck when playing a card game, if luck played too much of a factor, it would affect the balance of the game. Think about it, if one side worked hard for a long time to gain an advantage suddenly turned the tables because of the other side's sudden burst of luck, wouldn't they be on tenterhooks every time in the future? If their efforts were to be in vain, what was the point of playing the game? The concept of the sapphire that Poplar Fruit proposed just happened to give Fong Beibei a very good inspiration for balancing the game. We can do it this way. The sapphire won't be the same every round. In the first round, the player only has one sapphire and can only summon low-level mercenaries. This way, there won't be a situation where one player draws low-level mercenaries, while the other player draws the strongest mercenary card in the first round, and then kills the opponent easily. Fong Beibei said happily as she waved her chopsticks. Then at the end of every round, the number of sapphire on both sides will increase by 1. Fong Beibei felt that she didn't make it clear enough, so she explained further. What I mean is that in every round, regardless of whether the sapphire is used up or not, it won't be carried to the next round. The sapphire will be redistributed in the next round. For example, in the second round, everyone will have 2 sapphire, and in the third round, everyone will have 3 sapphire, and so on. Poplar Fruit nodded and gestured for Fong Beibei to eat. He said, That's a good idea. That way, our game will have a very new way of playing. I can also set the character according to their abilities, and the number of crystals consumed. That's it. Fong Beibei said unhappily. That's it? You're the one who's leading the game design. Can't you give some suggestions? Otherwise, it won't be challenging at all. Poplar Fruit scratched his head, thought for a moment, and said, All right then, here's the problem. The excavator technology. I digress. What I want to ask is, will our sapphire increase endlessly? If we play 100 rounds, will we have 100 sapphire? Even if we throw all the cards in our hands, we won't be able to finish using them, right? What are you talking about? Fong Beibei said, Of course it won't increase endlessly. I will set a limit. As for how much it will be, I haven't calculated it yet. The information you gave me isn't enough. I need you to give me the settings for different levels of mercenaries according to their mana consumption. Only then can I calculate it. After the meal, Poplar Fruit wanted to clear the table, but Fong Beibei stopped him and said, You've already cooked. Let me do the dishes. What's there to fight over? I'll do it. Poplar Fruit pointed at Kiki, who was sitting at the side and dozing off. He smiled and said, Help me carry Kiki to bed. Look at her little head. It's like a chicken pecking at rice. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 217. Classes, Game Design, and the day passed quickly amidst listening, arguing, laughing, and Kiki's occasional mischief. In the afternoon, Poplar fruit roughly divided Fong Beibei's mana consumption level from 1 to 8. This was the result of their discussion and calculation. The highest level was 8. Any higher and there would be an imbalance that would be difficult to control. Based on the 8, Fong Beibei calculated for only 10 minutes before telling Poplar fruit that the maximum number of sapphires distributed in a round should be 10. Was it fast? It was indeed fast. Of course, Fong Beibei had already prepared for it. However, Poplar fruit felt that Fong Beibei's mental calculation speed and logical thinking ability were similar to the prototype of a humanoid computer. However, after a busy day, they had only completed the framework of the entire game. The gameplay was already out, but they still needed Poplar fruit to design all the cards. Only then could the card game be made of flesh and blood. Hurry up, Fong Beibei said. You can temporarily write down the various values according to your settings. I'll wait for all your cards to be completed before making any adjustments. Otherwise, I won't be able to calculate for you out of thin air. Poplar fruit agreed readily. In fact, he already had a draft in his mind, but he had yet to add the corresponding mana consumption, attack power, health points and other data. He was going to organize it on the computer, and he should be able to give it to Fong Beibei the next day. That would save her a lot of time. At night, after dinner, it was still early. When they returned to the dormitory, their roommates had yet to return from their self-study in the library. Fong Beibei originally wanted to urge Poplar fruit to work and write out the settings of the cards. However, Poplar fruit suggested that they go out for a walk. Fong Beibei agreed, as it would be boring to stay in the rented apartment for the whole day. Of course, the walk was not going back to school. Behind the apartment was the beautiful Zhujiang. There was a long walking path along the river. Why would they go back to school? The annual runoff of Zhujiang was only second to the Yangtze River. It was 6 times higher than the Yellow River. It originated from the Yunnan Guizhou Plateau and passed through 6 provinces. Even Gillen's famous scenic spots originated from Zhujiang. Its reputation was mainly in Guangdong province. After all, it was one of the pioneers of the reform and was an important economic center in China. The Zhujiang Delta was famous there. However, the tributary that the Zhu River passed through in Yangcheng wasn't wide and didn't have the majestic momentum of the Yangtze and Yellow Rivers. On the contrary, it was very calm and flowed slowly without any sound. It was like a quiet and beautiful man hiding in the darkness, accompanied by the lights along the river. When Poplar Poplar, Poplar Poplar Poplar, Poplar Poplar, Popoplar Popoplar, Papa Popoplar Papa Poppling, Papa Poplar Poplar, Papopu, Poise Poplar Papapu, Popoplar Poi, Poo Popoi Pottle Po. Logically speaking, insects should not appear in March. However, the weather this year seemed to have warmed up faster. Some insects could not bear the loneliness and crawled out. The river breeze was gentle and the lights were heavy. The trees swayed gently and the flowers were fragrant. Perhaps it was because this place was close to the bridge, but they could vaguely hear the noise of the city traffic. It did not disturb their hearts. In contrast, the Zhujiang Delta's tranquility was more precious. When they reached a place with fewer people, Poplar fruit put Kiki down. He bent down and held her little hand to let her walk on her own. Kiki had long been unable to restrain herself. When she came down, she happily stepped on her pair of sparkling sneakers and wobbled forward. Poplar fruit had to hold her little arm to help her maintain her balance. Otherwise, with Kiki's current balance and weak legs, it was inevitable that she would fall. AI, slow down a bit. Kiki ran very happily. From Poplar fruit pulling her, it became her dragging Poplar fruit. That momentum of never looking back was very shocking. This made it difficult for Poplar fruit. He was tall and strong. In order to cooperate with Kiki, he had to bend his body very low. This was definitely a very tiring thing. Furthermore, when Kiki walked faster, Poplar fruit had to follow behind her. His feet were slanted and walking was very awkward and uncomfortable. But Poplar fruit still persevered. Seeing his daughter so happy, his face was full of smiles. No matter how awkward it was, he would not feel tired. Fong Beibei smiled and accompanied him by his side. Seeing the father and daughter's funny appearance, she could not help but laugh out loud. It was as if a warm feeling lingered in her heart. She suddenly stopped and looked at Poplar Fruit and the rest in a daze. Fong Beibei recalled when she was young. At that time, her parents were elementary school teachers. They did not have to take the students to self-study, so after dinner, the family could hold hands and walk around the school field. When she was young, Fong Beibei had a long braid. When she walked, it swayed and swayed. She was very cute. The position in the middle of her parents was definitely reserved for her. The family walked on the field and talked about the fun things in school. From time to time, Fong Beibei would add a few words. At that time, her childish words often brought a lot of laughter to her parents. That laughter was still fresh in her memory. It seemed to be very similar to the laughter of Poplar Fruit and Kiki, but it was also a little different. The memory and reality were separated and overlapped. Fong Beibei was unknowingly immersed in her own thoughts and pulled away from Poplar Fruit. Fong Beibei did not know why, but she suddenly became flustered. She usually called Poplar Fruit, Uncle, Weird Uncle. In fact, she also knew that Poplar Fruit and she were the same age. Was it very big to be only 5 years apart? It was not. However, when she saw Poplar Fruit's fiery eyes occasionally flash, she could not help but escape. Here, there were some things in the past that she did not want to talk about. However, she still agreed to Poplar Fruit's invitation again and again. She even came to the place he rented. Although she did need tuition in English, she definitely did not think that she had feelings for Poplar Fruit. It was too ridiculous. Even she herself felt that. Her heart was flustered because she suddenly found that she could feel the warmth and happiness of a family from Poplar Fruit and Kiki. This feeling was too strange, too sudden, and too unbelievable. For Poplar Fruit, he did not feel that there was anything special about taking a walk. When he was young, he would rush to eat dinner every night, and then run barefoot to his neighbor's house to watch TV. Watching the cartoon on the big windmill was his only entertainment. As for Yang Tai and Su Jinfeng, the two farmers, they had been busy the whole day. How could they have the leisure to take a walk? After dinner, they were a little free. Yang Tai went to the small store to chat with others while Su Jinfeng stayed at home to fiddle with things. Just like that, the day passed. Therefore, this kind of scene of a family taking a walk after dinner was only seen on TV in Poplar Fruit's memory. He did not feel anything about it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 218. Hey, Beibei, what are you doing standing there? Poplar Fruit did not see any movement, so he pulled Kiki over and shouted with a smile. Kiki also called out Beibei Beibei with a smile. Every time she called out, she would jump up and down and would not stop for a moment. Fong Beibei suppressed the panic in her heart and quickly walked up to him. Did you see anything good just now? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Nothing. Fong Beibei smiled and asked. Oh yeah, Uncle, you said this morning that you're going to America in 2 days? That's right. Yonggwa lowered her body and forced a smile as she tilted her head. It was rare for Poplar Fruit to be shorter than her, so Fong Beibei reached out her hand and quickly knocked on Poplar Fruit's head. Then she ran to the front with a smile. Her crisp laughter was like a silver coin hitting a copper bell. Poplar Fruit looked at Fong Beibei, who had her hands behind her back and was walking backwards in front of him, but he was not angry. Then Uncle, how many days are you going? Fong Beibei asked. Don't tell me you're not going to play and not coming back. No, this trip is similar to a business trip. Poplar Fruit said. I've been working with a publishing house that wants to import a foreign book. They're going to ask me to translate it, but they haven't reached an agreement with the author yet, so I'm going to America with them to talk to the author. It should only take about a week. Fong Beibei nodded. Seeing Poplar Fruit's counterattack, she walked in front of Poplar Fruit without much effort. She reached out her hand and said, Why don't you take a break and let me do it? Poplar Fruit handed Kiki to Fong Beibei. Although Fong Beibei was not as tall as Poplar Fruit, she was still an adult. Moreover, as a girl, her physical strength was not as good as a boy's. After a while, she was exhausted and panting. She simply carried Kiki and massaged her waist. Can you give her to me? Poplar Fruit asked. No, I can do it. However, Fong Beibei did not put Kiki down. Kiki was also tired after running for a while, so she did not insist on walking. After walking for a while, Fong Beibei's breathing finally stabilized. At this time, they were already very far away from the place where they lived. They were almost at Canton Tower. They did not continue to walk forward because they were attracted by a beautiful song. When they walked over to take a look, they saw a middle-aged man playing and singing. The middle-aged man was not young. He looked like he was in his 50s. Although his hair was slightly white, he was wearing a gray-green vest, casual shorts, and cloth shoes. It made him look very neat and energetic. The middle-aged man was carrying a guitar, and there was a microphone stand in front of him. The microphone was connected to a small speaker. It was well equipped. When Poplar Fruit and the rest arrived, the middle-aged man was singing "You Ching Ching's I Had No Choice." He played the guitar skillfully. The tune was slightly different from the original singers, but he sang his own style. "I'm afraid that I will fall in love with you. I don't dare to let myself get too close. I'm afraid that I have nothing to give you. It takes a lot of courage to love you. Oh." The middle-aged man swayed his thick waist. His slightly hoarse voice had a different rock sound to it. "What's the reason? I can't believe that I will meet you again. I really, I don't want to fall into the trap of love like this." The middle-aged man could not help but sing. He put down the guitar and clapped his hands to the beat. He asked the surrounding audience to sing along. Even if no one echoed him, he still entertained himself like a superstar. "I fell in love with you because I had no choice." At the end of the sentence, the middle-aged man stretched out a finger and swept it around. "Thank you." The middle-aged man's wonderful singing still received sparse applause. The onlookers dispersed and left. Only a few people bent down and threw a few coins into the guitar case. Poplar Fruit noticed that there was not much money in the guitar case. There were a few notes of 1 and 5 yuan, and the rest were coins. There were a lot of people here at night. The middle-aged man sang so well. Why was there so little money? This question made Poplar Fruit a little confused. In the end, only Poplar Fruit and Fong Beibei were left standing there. The middle-aged man looked relaxed. The group of people were singing, and the 2 adults and a child were also singing. A melodious prelude sounded as they plucked the guitar strings. "My 2 friends and this little child." The middle-aged man leaned in front of the microphone and said with a smile, "Northern Spring. I hope you like it." White birches in the pavilion, the long blue sky, a slight wind from the south. Magnolia blossoms on the hill, Northern Spring. Ah, Northern Spring has come. As soon as the middle-aged man opened his mouth, Poplar Fruit was stunned. This voice, this song, it was very similar to teacher Jiang Wei. To be honest, the middle-aged man's choice of song was really not good. Northern Spring was a song that became popular in the 1970s and 1980s. Nowadays, few young people had heard it. For example, Fong Beibei's expression showed that it was the first time she had heard it. The song, "I Had No Choice," just now was also an old song from more than 10 years ago. But compared to it, it was still in the category of pop songs. If young people listened to it, it would still cause some response. But how could Northern Spring be suitable for young people in their 20s? But this song was a lucky hit. It just so happened to be about Yang Gua. Poplar Fruit rarely sang, but when he was a child he heard his father, Yang Tai, sing a lot of songs. Among them, Northern Spring was Yang Tai's favorite. When working in the field, Yang Tai would put a small radio next to him, play a tape, and then slowly hum along with teacher Jiang Wei's singing. Poplar Fruit, who was responsible for delivering food, didn't need to look far. As long as he followed the song, he could find his father's position. The middle-aged man's song was not only beautiful, but also the tune that he hadn't heard for many years, which awakened many memories in Poplar Fruit. Fong Beibei had never heard this song before, but the tune of this song was very simple. After listening to it once, she could gently hum along. Fong Beibei's voice was also very beautiful. Kiki looked at the middle-aged man for a while, then looked up at Beibei, who was also singing. She didn't know who to look at. The middle-aged man, who got a response, was very happy. After singing once, he didn't stop and sang again. Finally, with one hand on the guitar, his right hand elegantly waved a few circles in the air. Then he bent down and bowed. Fong Beibei's applause woke Poplar Fruit up. Unknowingly, Poplar Fruit had already shed a few drops of tears. Ever since he left high school, he spent less and less time with his father. And how many years had it been since he last heard his singing? Poplar Fruit used his sleeve to wipe his tears and also clapped. Not only that, Poplar Fruit took out his wallet from his pocket, took out $100 bill, and gently put it in the guitar case. This wasn't because he wanted to show off his wealth in front of Fong Beibei, but because of the memories that this song brought to him. It was worth it for him to pay. $100. He still felt that it was too little. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to give to the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 219. Poplar Fruit put down the money and was about to turn and leave when the uncle called out to them. Hey! Wait! Take the 100 yuan away. The uncle smiled at Poplar Fruit, who was looking back at him strangely. 100 yuan is too much. He had seen people who thought the money was too little, but he had never seen someone who thought the money was too much. Poplar Fruit could not believe his ears. He looked at the uncle in a daze and said after a long time, It's okay, you can keep it. We think it's worth it. No, you misunderstood. The uncle smiled. I'm not here to sing. Singing was a hobby of mine when I was young. Now that I've retired early, I picked it up and came out to play with my friends who like to sing and listen to music. I'm really not short of money. Don't think that I'm here to collect money. In fact, I just want to see how many people recognize my singing, the uncle explained with a smile. It seemed that the uncle was here to prove himself. Poplar Fruit smiled. Uncle, your singing is really good. That's why we gave you so much money. Didn't you want to see how much recognition you have? This pursuit won't stop you from taking the 100 yuan from me, right? That's not what I meant. The uncle was a little anxious. He carried his guitar and said, I know that it's not easy for you couples to earn money. You got married at a young age and have a child. There are many things you need to spend money on. Uncle knows my situation. Using Zhao Benson's words from the Spring Festival Gala, I'm not short of money. You should keep your 100 yuan to buy more nutrition for the child. Couple? Poplar Fruit was stunned. Fong Beibei's face turned red. She said in a panic, No, we're not husband and wife. That's right, Yonghua also helped to explain. The two of us are just friends. The uncle was confused. He looked at them carefully. A golden boy and a jade girl, a perfect match. But if they're not husband and wife, then what's up with the child in his arms? This relationship is messed up. It's too weird. The uncle had lived for half a century and still could not figure it out. He smiled and didn't say much, but he still insisted that Poplar Fruit take the money back. Uncle, you don't have to worry. He makes a lot of money as a translator. 100 yuan won't make him poor. Fong Beibei smiled. That won't do either. If I accept it, won't I become a singer? The uncle was adamant that he didn't want to. His head could be broken and blood could flow, but his hairstyle couldn't be messed up. Cough cough, it should be the feeling of having a lofty aspiration that couldn't be disgraced. How about this? Fong Beibei suggested. It's rare for us to meet here. Uncle, why don't you accompany us? We'll sing a few songs too. This 100 yuan is the rent for your microphone. Even so, you don't need so much. The uncle shook his head, but he also felt that Poplar Fruit was unwilling to take back the money. Seeing Fong Beibei's excited look, in order not to spoil his friend's mood, he had to agree. What are you going to sing? Uncle doesn't know any new pop songs. The uncle said while holding the guitar. Fong Beibei thought for a moment and said, Yearning in the Rain. Uncle, do you know how to play it? The uncle smiled and said, That's no problem. My wife used to like it when she was young. But this is a duet between a man and a woman. Are you going to sing it with your friend? Fong Beibei looked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit quickly waved his hand and said, Beibei, you sing. I don't know how to sing. It would be a lie if he didn't know how to sing. This Cantonese song was too classic. Even Poplar Fruit's sister liked to hum a few lines. How could Poplar Fruit not know how to sing? However, with his singing skills, it was better not to embarrass himself. The uncle didn't want to make things difficult for him. He plucked the strings and hummed, unsolvable worries, deep love. He didn't use a microphone, but his voice was still loud with a mature magnetism. Poplar Fruit was envious. The sea of love becomes boundless. Infatuation meets the cold wind. Fong Beibei sang along. Fong Beibei's voice was a little nervous at first, but after singing a few lines with the uncle, it gradually became better. Poplar Fruit always knew that her voice was very pleasant, but he didn't expect Fong Beibei's voice to be even more ethereal when she sang. Especially when singing this song, Fong Beibei's voice became more ethereal as she sang, as if she really came through the wind and rain, making people daydream. Towards the end, the uncle actually became Fong Beibei's foil. Listening to her line, "Ah, in the wind and rain of yearning," and her soft sighs, he actually sang with a feeling of sadness. Poplar Fruit held his daughter and listened quietly. Kiki didn't make any noise, so Poplar Fruit didn't notice Kiki's focused expression. He was already immersed in Fong Beibei's singing. In his heart, he could not help but exclaim in admiration again and again. He felt that Fong Beibei had grasped the emotions of this song too well. It was as if every song she sang came from the bottom of her heart. It was as if every line of the song was mixed with her own feelings. "I hope we meet again in the future. The night is long and the road is long. I hope the flower is also bright red, and the road is not behind." Yes. She sang so well. In the last few lines, Fong Beibei's voice trembled slightly, and her eyes were red, as if she had really experienced emotional storms. That weak appearance made Poplar Fruit have the illusion of holding her in his arms. The uncle didn't stop the last note of the guitar, making it tremble for a long time. He looked up, faintly looked at Fong Beibei, then looked at Poplar Fruit, sighed but smiled. No one knew what he was thinking. Fong Beibei felt that she just sang the song too emotionally. When her eyes met Poplar Fruit, she was a little flustered. She moved forward in order to retreat, and said to Poplar Fruit, "Uncle, you also sing a song." "No, I don't know how to sing." Poplar Fruit panicked, shook his head and said, "Oh, come out and play, don't be shy, come and sing." The uncle waved his hand. "No, I don't know how to sing old songs." Poplar Fruit held back for a long time and said, he thought, "The uncle plays old songs. If I say this, he should let me go, right? You say a song that you know how to sing, see if I know how to sing it." The uncle said happily, "Someone _like_ you. If you can play, I'll sing." Poplar Fruit had an idea and said, "What?" The uncle was confused. Hee, you don't understand, do you?" Poplar Fruit proudly thought. The English song was only released last year. I don't believe that such a traditional uncle can learn it. "Uncle, lend me your guitar, I'll play it for him." Fong Beibei smiled and said to the uncle. In Poplar Fruit's sluggish eyes, Fong Beibei took the guitar. Her white as scallion fingers lightly plucked the guitar strings, and a beautiful prelude came out. If it wasn't "Oh, I Like You," what else could it be? The guitar she played, although it wasn't as good as the uncle's, it was still very skillful. Fong Beibei stopped, her fingers flat on the guitar strings, looked up at Poplar Fruit with a sweet smile, and said, "Now there's an accompaniment, come." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to buy the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 220. You know how to play the guitar? Poplar Fruit asked, dumbfounded. Yes. Fong Beibei mischievously winked at Poplar Fruit and said, "I started practicing the guitar when I was in high school. Is it okay?" "Then how do you know this song?" Poplar Fruit asked. "I thought you don't like English." Fong Beibei giggled and said, "I don't like English, but that doesn't mean I don't like English songs. As a microphone hog in the new era, mastering all kinds of new pop songs is the most basic standard." Poplar Fruit wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What a miscalculation. If he had known earlier, he would not have said any English songs. He should have said a French song, like J_M m'appelle Helene. My name is Elaine. No, this is quite famous. There is no guarantee. He should have said a Swedish song. Yes, that way no one would know how to play it. However, it was too late to regret after he had said such big words. Poplar Fruit could only carry Kiki and brace himself to walk in front of the microphone. Pay attention to the rhythm, it's coming. Fong Beibei reminded him, and began to play the guitar. Heard that you settled down. That you found a girl and you married now. Poplar Fruit closed his eyes, listened carefully, and sang very seriously. The lyrics were sung very accurately, and the pronunciation was very clear. Poplar Fruit's voice, especially the English pronunciation, was also very good. However, from the first word, it was out of tune. He closed his eyes and sang affectionately. Little did he know that Fong Bei, who was playing the guitar, was laughing so hard that she could not play anymore. The uncle, who was listening at the side, was also full of smiles. Although he had not heard this song before, from the rhythm of the guitar, he could tell that Poplar Fruit was definitely out of tune. To be honest, Yongguo's voice was already very pleasant to listen to and had a bit of magnetism to it. It was just that he had never been able to grasp the tune. He could directly play the original song in his mind, but the original song in his memory was sung like this, but when it came out of his mouth, it became a completely different tune. Poplar Fruit often played this song at home, so Kiki was very familiar with it. When she heard it, she could not help but move. Her little hand was raised high, but she still could not reach the microphone. She kicked her legs, and her little shoes stepped on her father's belt to jump up, waved her little arms, and her fingers accidentally scratched his mouth. Poplar Fruit was interrupted. He opened his eyes, spat out Kiki's slightly salty fingers, and patted her butt. The sound of the strings also stopped. Poplar Fruit turned around to look. Fong Bei was already convulsing with laughter, and she almost threw the guitar. Poplar Fruit scratched his head awkwardly and complained, "I already said that I don't know how to sing, but you still made me sing." He hugged Kiki up and twisted his body. This time, Kiki could reach the microphone. She imitated the adults and shouted into the microphone. Everyone's attention was on her, to see what she was doing. They saw that Kiki was addicted to playing. Her two little hands grabbed the head of the microphone tightly, and her mouth moved closer to it to hum a song. At first, everyone thought that the microphone was fun, and that she could make sounds, so she was shouting randomly. After listening for a while, Fong Bei was the first to discover that Kiki was special. Although Kiki was shouting and did not get a word right, the intermittent tune was very familiar. Wasn't it the song that she played just now? Fong Bei tried to play the guitar along with Kiki's humming. With the help of the accompaniment, Kiki finally found a continuity in her humming. When she encountered a part that she could not remember, she could also replace it with a nasal sound. Poplar Fruit was no stranger to this scene. He often played some songs at home and let Kiki, who liked melodies, learn to hum by herself. This was also a kind of early teaching. Now Kiki was just singing, a song that she was already very familiar with. Of course, there were still many flaws in Chi-Chi's singing. For example, no one could understand the meaning of the sounds that came out of her mouth. It was a far cry from the original pronunciation. Another example was that there were times when she couldn't react in time. These were all unavoidable. For a child who wasn't even a year old yet, this was already the performance of a genius. Kiki had a very good sense of melody and rhythm. Compared to Poplar Fruit, they were two extremes. Poplar Fruit sometimes wondered if Kiki had inherited this from Wu Yu. Kiki sang the song that her father did not finish singing. In the end, Poplar Fruit also let Kiki sing her best, "Only Mother is Good in the World." Only Mother is Good in the World. Kiki's voice was full of innocence, making the passers-by stop. Unknowingly, there were several circles of people around. At the end of the song, there was a thunderous applause. Poplar Fruit and Fong Bei, who were immersed in it, were shocked. They returned the guitar to the uncle and ran away. In the end, the uncle also took Poplar Fruit's hand and said to him, "Little brother, you are a good child. You have such a good sense of music. When you grow up, you will definitely be a great singer at the level of the Queen of Songs." In fact, for such praise, Poplar Fruit did not take it to heart. This did not mean that he did not care about Kiki's growth, but in Poplar Fruit's view, he hoped that Kiki could grow up healthily and happily. It did not matter if she was a singer in the future or not. Even if she was just an ordinary person, as long as she could do what she liked to do and live the life she liked, Poplar Fruit would be satisfied. After sending Fong Bei back to the dormitory and arranging a time to meet with her tomorrow, Poplar Fruit carried his tired daughter to the teacher's apartment. Kiki was asleep, so Poplar Fruit could not give her a bath. However, it would be unhygienic if she did not take a bath. Poplar Fruit took a wet towel and wiped Kiki's body, face, hands, and feet. After changing 2 basins of warm water, Poplar Fruit carried her to the bed. There was no crib here, and Poplar Fruit did not have time to buy one, so he had to let Kiki sleep on the big bed. However, he was worried that his daughter would move and roll down at night, so Poplar Fruit moved the computer to the bedroom to accompany Kiki. He did an hour of translation work, then opened a document, and typed out the card design that had already taken shape in his mind. When he finished typing and looked up again, it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. Even though Poplar Fruit only slept for 3 hours a day, he still felt sleepy. Nowadays, Kiki rarely drank milk in the middle of the night. However, she was very tired today and had used up a lot of energy, so Poplar Fruit made milk in the middle of the night and fed it to her when she woke up from wetting the bed. At night, Kiki drank milk unconsciously in her hazy sleep. Her little hands clutched her father's clothes tightly, as if she was afraid that her father would suddenly leave. As his daughter grew up, she would become more outgoing. Although Kiki was still very dependent on her father, as she grew up, she would no longer be as clingy as when she was just born. Now Poplar Fruit felt as if he had returned to the night when Kiki was just born. Although he was already very tired, he could not bear to let go of his daughter when she was in his arms. Xiao Han had a cold and fever. He had a headache when he came back yesterday, but he still struggled to type 2 cards. His eyes and feet were hurting. Everyone, take care of your health when the season changes. Chapter 221. As usual, Poplar Fruit woke up early in the morning to practice his martial arts. When he came back, he took a cold shower and carried Kiki to Fong Bei Bei. Breakfast was eaten at the North Gate. The school breakfast was cheap, but the taste was really hard to swallow. Passing by the newly opened printing shop, Poplar Fruit printed out all the card settings he had written yesterday. In order to leave room for modification, Poplar Fruit printed out a card's information on a piece of A4 paper. More than 200 sheets of paper were printed out, forming a thick stack. Fortunately, the school's printing shop was cheap. It only cost 10 cents per sheet, so the total was only about 20 yuan. You wrote it all out. Fong Bei Bei skipped downstairs. Seeing Poplar Fruit holding a large stack of paper, she happily grabbed it. Poplar Fruit smiled, but didn't continue to show off. How many are there? Without waiting for them to return to the teacher's apartment, Fong Bei Bei couldn't wait to look through it. More than 200, 223. Poplar Fruit said. You made so many in one night? Fong Bei Bei asked in disbelief. I just wrote it down last night, Poplar Fruit said honestly. In fact, I had a draft before. Amazing. Fong Bei Bei finally couldn't help but praise Poplar Fruit. You know, she usually couldn't wait to mock Poplar Fruit. Where did you get so many ideas? Fong Bei Bei suddenly laughed. She couldn't stand steadily on the stairs, and almost leaned on Poplar Fruit. Her hair brushed against Poplar Fruit's body, creating a trace of fragrance. Poplar Fruit reached out to take back the information and scolded her. You have to look like you're walking on the stairs. Don't look at it. Look at it when we get there. No. Fong Bei Bei giggled and dodged it. She waved one of the papers and said, What's the matter with this injured sword saint? Why is your HP dropping as soon as you come out? Oh, this. Poplar Fruit laughed. The Blade Master is such a classic character. I think that if we were to place him in a high-level card based on his high attack power, the chances of him appearing would be too low. Then I was thinking that we should do the opposite and let him have high attack power but low HP. That way he can appear earlier. Almost all the mercenary cards, equipment cards, and spell cards are based on the background stories of magical beasts. Then, I added a little creativity. Overall, it's relatively easy, Poplar Fruit said casually. Fong Bei Bei agreed. When Poplar Fruit opened the door, she excitedly walked to the desk and picked up a pen to calculate. Not yet. Poplar Fruit grabbed Fong Bei Bei's pen and laughed. Today's learning task hasn't been completed yet. Can you stop learning? Fong Bei Bei looked up at Poplar Fruit pitifully and begged. That won't do. Poplar Fruit shook his head. Designing games was just a project to pass the time. Learning English was the most important thing. How could he put the cart before the horse? He looked at Fong Beibei, who was blinking her eyes pitifully, and sighed. Okay, you can rest after an hour of learning. Yay. Fong Beibei happily clapped her hands and rushed up to hug Kiki and kissed her on the cheek. Kiki, who was suddenly attacked, laughed foolishly. Just like the previous classes, Poplar Fruit projected an article and explained it to Fong Beibei in detail. Then he let her learn to use new words to form sentences. After class, Fong Beibei chased Poplar Fruit away. She took out the card information that she had been eyeing for a long time. Fong Beibei categorized the different levels of cards, and then spread them out in a fan shape. She picked up a draft paper and started calculating. Poplar Fruit shook his head. At this time his phone rang. He picked it up and walked to the balcony to answer the call. It was Zheng Yujie calling. Zheng Yujie happily told him that the itinerary for the trip to America was finally set. She had already bought the plane tickets, and the flight was scheduled for next Thursday. It was Sunday now. He still had to go to Beijing a day earlier to meet up with Zheng Yujie and the people from the publishing house. That meant that he had to fly to Beijing at least on Wednesday. He only had 2 days left to pack his luggage. Time seemed to be tight all of a sudden. However, after Poplar Fruit put down the phone, he did not think about how to pack his luggage. He saw someone on the balcony, someone who made him fall into deep thought. That person was wearing a cap, so he could not see his face or age clearly. He was holding a DSLR and was walking around Poplar Fruit's building. He had definitely seen him before. Poplar Fruit stared at the person's sling bag, and a few scenes flashed through his mind. That time when he was driving out of the garage, there was a person in the crowd with his back facing him with a sling bag hanging on his back. That time when he turned around on the school path, there was a person making a phone call, and that person was also carrying a sling bag. Many fragmented memories overlapped with each other. Those inconspicuous sling bags were also overlapped at this time. Poplar Fruit was 100% sure that these sling bags were exactly the same as the one downstairs. Why were they the same? Poplar Fruit was puzzled. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit saw the strange person raise his head and look up with the DSLR in his hand. Poplar Fruit instinctively retracted his head. She retracted her head. At that moment, Yanghua suddenly saw the light. That familiar feeling of being watched. Yes, it was that familiar feeling of being watched. Poplar Fruit felt it the moment the strange person raised his head. It turned out that the source of everything came from him. Thinking about how he had appeared many times in his memory, Poplar Fruit was sure that this guy had been following and secretly taking photos of him all this time. Poplar Fruit secretly clenched his fist and thought, I didn't feel wrong, and I'm not crazy. Someone really is following me. Was he a paparazzi? Poplar Fruit couldn't help but frown. But he wasn't a big star, so why was he secretly taking photos of him? What did he have that was worth secretly taking photos of him day and night? Or was he a so-called crazy fan? He was just a little popular on Weibo. Could it be that he had his eyes on his daughter? Thinking about the innocent Kiki, Poplar Fruit suddenly felt an unknown fire in his heart. Moreover, no matter what the reason was, he had caused a lot of trouble in his life. He couldn't let him continue to be so presumptuous. Poplar Fruit thought that he had to have a good talk with him. Poplar Fruit returned to the living room and put Kiki in the baby walker so that she could play by herself in the living room. Although Fong Beibei was engrossed in calculations, Poplar Fruit wasn't worried that Kiki would lose control with her around. After checking that he didn't miss anything, he picked up the key, opened the door and walked out. He just wanted to have a good talk with him. Yang felt that there was no need to make a big fuss, so he didn't bring anything. He left a pair of flip-flops at his feet. Xiaohan had a cold and fever. When he came back from work yesterday, his throat was sore and his head was dizzy, but he still struggled to take 2 photos. His eyes and feet were hurting. Everyone, take care of yourself when the season changes. Chapter 222. The photos the strange man took yesterday had filled up several memory cards. There were indeed all kinds of big news. It was worth it to follow him for so long. That night, he He would find a small hotel and upload the photos to his computer. He would come back today to see if there were any more interesting photos. Whether or not there were any, the photos from yesterday were enough for him to complete his task. It was just that people were greedy and always thought that there would be more valuable photos. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he saw Poplar Fruit's figure walking down the stairs. He sat down on a stone chair and took out a newspaper from somewhere. He shook it and opened it to cover his upper body. This was a common trick, and it could fool Poplar Fruit every time. However, this time, Poplar Fruit came downstairs to look for him. Pushing open the door, Poplar Fruit looked around and saw the strange man sitting on the stone chair, pretending to read the newspaper. Shaking his head, Poplar Fruit strode forward. When he was 5 or 6 meters away, he shouted, "Hey!" With a martial artist's intuition, the strange man was already frightened when Poplar Fruit approached him. When Poplar Fruit shouted, he immediately knew that he had been exposed. Thinking about the villa district that Poplar Fruit went to 2 days ago, the strange man knew that he could not provoke such a person with such a background. At the very least, he could not face him directly. Therefore, when he heard Poplar Fruit shout, it was as if someone had stepped on his tail, and he suddenly jumped up. His jump also shocked Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit subconsciously pounced forward and grabbed the strange man's arm. He was about to say, "Don't be so agitated. I just want to talk to you." Actually, talking was not a good thing. Thinking about those immature little brats, before they beat someone up, didn't they like to say, "I want to talk to you in the washroom after class"? However, Poplar Fruit's motive wasn't to beat him up, but to reason with him. When Poplar Fruit grabbed his arm, the strange man suddenly threw the camera in his hand. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to let go of his hand and tilt his head to avoid it. How could the weirdo really throw away his camera? He pulled the strap, and the camera flew back. Wait! Poplar Fruit used his left and right feet as an axis. His body spun 180 degrees like a top, and stood in front of the monster. At this moment, Poplar Fruit finally got a clear look at the monster's appearance. He was a man in his 30s with a pale and ordinary face. His eyes were full of vigor, but he hadn't taken care of his beard for a long time. His stubble was messy. "Get out of the way." Provoked, the strange man clenched his fists and threw them out like lightning, throwing out punches that could break the wind. He actually knew martial arts. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He had always thought that the strange man was a paparazzi or someone else. Who would have thought that he could fight so well? Of course, he didn't think much of this weak punch. This little bit of kung fu was nothing compared to Yang Jingdong's. How could he hurt Poplar Fruit? Poplar Fruit easily parried the two attacking arms, and then pressed forward. With a light right elbow strike, the strange man took a few steps back. The strange man was also shocked. He had never seen Poplar Fruit practice martial arts in the morning before. He was still asleep at that time. He didn't think that Poplar Fruit also knew martial arts, and was much stronger than him. Of the 36 stratagems, escape is the best. Taking advantage of being pushed away by Poplar Fruit, the strange man didn't hesitate to turn around and run. He didn't even care about Poplar Fruit's yelling behind him. "Hey, wait!" Poplar Fruit was speechless. He just wanted to talk. Why didn't he give him face or a chance? He wanted to catch up and ask, but he was wearing a pair of flip-flops today. It was very uncomfortable to run, and the strange man quickly pulled away from him. By the time he caught up, the strange man had already jumped over the two adjacent trees and disappeared over the wall. His punching and kicking skills weren't that good, but his movement and his escaping skills were definitely the best Poplar Fruit had ever seen. He jumped over a 3 to 4 meter high wall just like that. Poplar Fruit estimated that it would take him a few minutes to climb the wall with his bare hands. F***ck. Poplar Fruit stood by the wall, waved his hand, and cursed helplessly. Wasn't it just a meeting to talk? Why was he so scared? Poplar Fruit kicked his flip-flops. If it weren't for this burden, Poplar Fruit was confident that he could catch up with that person with his explosive speed. Why did he follow me and take pictures? He didn't get an answer to his question. He felt a little unhappy, but there was no other way. He had already run away. What else could he do? Forget it. I hope this time he will retreat. If he appears again, I must catch him next time. Poplar Fruit thought gloomily. Poplar Fruit returned home empty-handed. Fong Beibei didn't even raise her head as she asked, "Where did you go?" "Oh, nothing. I just went out for a walk." Poplar Fruit didn't want to tell her about his embarrassing incident. Fong Beibei wasn't interested in getting to the bottom of it. She mainly wanted to find Poplar Fruit to ask about the cards. Poplar Fruit's classification of the cards was actually quite good. However, there were still too many levels of mercenaries, or some mercenaries were too strong, which affected the balance. Fong Beibei wanted to ask for Poplar Fruit's opinion. She needed to change the data of some cards. Then, which cards were more suitable to change the level of the cards? After solving one problem after another with Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit still couldn't leave. He was pulled back by Fong Beibei. "You wait by the side. We still need you. Don't run around, or we won't be able to find you." Yanghua had no choice but to take a book and drag a rattan chair over to sit comfortably at the side and read. Kiki sat in the baby walker and ran around happily. When she ran to her father's side, Poplar Fruit stepped on the baby walker. Kiki turned left and right, but she couldn't pull the baby walker. When Kiki cried anxiously, Poplar Fruit smiled and let go of his foot, letting her run. However, Kiki thought it was quite fun. She ran around the living room and ran to her father's side. She deliberately let her father catch her. She didn't get tired of it. "Oh yeah, I'm going to Beijing the day after tomorrow." Poplar Fruit smiled and said to Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei suddenly looked up and asked in surprise, "You're going to the United States? So soon?" "Yeah." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, "I just received a notice from a friend in the publishing house. The itinerary is set." "Okay." Fong Beibei said. "What about Jinzi? Kiki is going to the United States with you. But Jinzi can't go with you, right?" "I don't know if my godmother, my friend's mother, can take care of it." Poplar Fruit also thought of Jinzi's cute little figure. "You can't have pets in the dormitory." Fong Beibei pouted. She liked dogs very much. She raised Jinzi for 10 days during the Spring Festival and developed a relationship with it. That was why she asked Poplar Fruit to bring it over. "My godmother may not be able to take care of it well." Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, "How about I give you the key here? You can stay here for a few days and help me take care of Jinzi, okay?" In the end he added, "Anyway, you have a bicycle. It's convenient to come here." Fong Beibei looked at the key that Poplar Fruit handed over. She hesitated for a while before taking it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. "Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk." Chapter 223. The trip to America was getting closer and closer. Poplar Fruit really did not have the time to find out the truth about the strange man secretly taking pictures of him. He could only put it aside for the time being and wait until he returned to China. Fong Beibei took the stack of documents back to the dormitory and continued to calculate. Actually, she could barely play with it, but there was still a big loophole in the balance. Poplar Fruit went to 2 French classes on Monday and brought his sleepy daughter home in the afternoon. If he did not pack his luggage now, it would be too late. It was the first time he had traveled so far, and he was going to another country on the other side of the ocean. Poplar Fruit was excited, but also a little nervous. He did not know where to start packing as he felt that everything was important, especially Kiki's things. He stuffed bags after bags of diapers and cans of milk powder. Just these 2 items alone were enough for Poplar Fruit to fill a large suitcase. However, he still felt that it was not enough. He was always worried that his daughter would starve in a foreign country. There were also Kiki's little clothes. This one was pretty, that one was pretty too. He did not know where to choose, so he simply stuffed them all into another large suitcase. Since they were going abroad, he could not let the blonde foreigners think that they were from the countryside. His daughter must dress up beautifully. Poplar Fruit was humming a tuneless song as he walked in and out, stuffing things into the suitcase from time to time. Kiki was playing with her toys at the side, but her attention was completely attracted by her father. She looked around curiously, thinking about what her father was doing. "Right." Poplar Fruit suddenly stopped and muttered, "Kiki's thermometer." Well, this thing should be useful outside. It would be best if she did not have a cold or a fever, but what if she really did fall sick? In fact, compared to other children, Kiki was already considered very healthy. In the past year, except for a few months when Poplar Fruit did not know how to take care of her, she rarely fell sick. Even if she did fall sick, it was only a minor illness like the flu. It did not cause any trouble for her father. Poplar Fruit did not know that he was already extremely lucky compared to other parents. Poplar Fruit rummaged through the cabinets to find the small thermometer, wrapped it in the original plastic casing, and carefully put it into the suitcase. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and thought for a while. There shouldn't be anything missing, right? He then pulled out the third suitcase. This one was much smaller and was used to store his clothes. He went into his bedroom and rummaged through his wardrobe. Usually at home, she didn't care how she dressed. She wore the same few clothes over and over again. Many of her clothes were at the bottom of the wardrobe. At this moment, Poplar Fruit realized that he really didn't have many suitable clothes to wear outside. He mentioned the Givenchy suit that Jung Yujia had bought. That was the best one. As for the rest, they were either short or ugly. They were simply unbearable to look at. What to do? Poplar Fruit scratched his head awkwardly. Ever since he had Kiki, he had been too lazy to shop for clothes. Now something had happened. He didn't even have any clothes to wear outside. No, there was. Poplar Fruit patted his head and took out a big black bag from the top drawer of the wardrobe. He threw it on the bed and opened it. Many clothes of different styles were exposed. They were mixed together, and it was hard to tell what they looked like. However, judging from the material, they were all top-quality fabrics. These were all Old Man Ardle's failed products. Although they were failures, they were still 100 times better than the clothes sold in the ordinary brand stores outside. Ardle was not satisfied and wanted to throw them all away. Poplar Fruit said at that time, "Why don't you leave them for me?" So, he picked out the clothes that were not cut and could still be worn. At that time, he put them in a bag and threw them in the top drawer of the wardrobe. Later, he was so busy that he forgot about it. Now, it seemed that this pile of clothes could be put to good use. Poplar Fruit was secretly happy. He picked out some of the more formal clothes from the pile of clothes. Although it was only a small pile, there were still 5 sets of clothes. It was enough. Holding the clothes, he walked out of the bedroom. Poplar Fruit was so angry that he laughed. Kiki had climbed into the big suitcase and rummaged through her clothes all over the floor. When Poplar Fruit came out, he saw that she had thrown out a piece of clothing. "My good baby, you made Daddy so busy. You messed up the folded clothes again." Poplar Fruit squatted down and wanted to pinch Kiki's little face intimately. At this time, Fong Bei's advice from yesterday appeared in his mind. If you don't want Kiki to have a bun face when she grows up, don't pinch her face from now on. Steamed bun face was too lethal. Poplar Fruit embarrassedly withdrew his left hand. His right index finger arched and scratched Kiki's nose. He laughed and scolded, "Little troublemaker, you always bring Daddy trouble. What if Daddy didn't pay attention and locked you inside?" Poplar Fruit smiled with a straight face. He deliberately pulled the lid of the suitcase and locked Kiki inside. When he opened it again, Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "How is it? Are you scared?" "No." He closed it again and opened it again. Kiki was stunned by the dark environment, but she could immediately see her daddy in the light. She felt that it was very fun. After doing this twice, Kiki actually giggled. Poplar Fruit helplessly carried her up. He couldn't play with her anymore. What if she was really infatuated with this feeling and burrowed into the suitcase all day long? Poplar Fruit closed the door. He placed Kiki into the baby walker and let her run around the dining room. Then he prepared to clean up the mess that Kiki left behind. At this time, there was a knock on the door. When he opened the door, it was Duan Xueqing. She wore a plain dress and stood there. Poplar Fruit thought it was Song Jiwen because he counted with his fingers. It was time to get off work, and he should have returned the gold. "Xueqing? I thought it was a mosquito." "Ha. Come in." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, "Where are you going?" Duan Xueqing asked curiously when she saw the big suitcases in the living room. Poplar Fruit pushed away Kiki, who barged in, and smiled. I'm going to the US and will set off in 2 days. You just came back and you're going out again? Duan Xueqing asked unhappily. Poplar Fruit wasn't home for the entire weekend. She wanted to go somewhere with Poplar Fruit to play, but the door was tightly shut. Even Song Jiwen couldn't find him. I can't help it. The publishing company suddenly brought forward the time. I also just received the news, and I didn't tell you guys. Poplar Fruit smiled. Publishing company? Duan Xueqing caught the keyword. That's right. Poplar Fruit smiled. I'm not going to the US for a holiday, but I have a job to do. Dongxin Publishing is preparing to import a book, and all the paperwork is complete. But they are stuck with the author. We are going this time to convince that author. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the humble class. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 224. Duan Xueqing's eyebrows suddenly wrinkled, and she asked with a trembling voice, Dongxin Publishing? With that woman? That woman? Poplar Fruit looked over in confusion, and his eyes met with Duan Xueqing's. Oh. Poplar Fruit suddenly said. You mean Yujia? Other than Zheng Yujia, Poplar Fruit couldn't think of any other woman Duan Xueqing had met. Duan Xueqing's face turned colder and colder when she heard Yanghua address her by her name without mentioning her surname or her position. Yes, she didn't know how to express her mixed feelings. Anger, sadness, jealousy, disappointment, sadness, etc. She could only wrap herself in layers of ice. She is going. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and smiled. She is the deputy editor of Dongxin Publishing. She is leading the team on this trip. After that, Poplar Fruit squatted down, picked up the scattered clothes, gathered them next to the box, and then picked out the clothes that were messed up by Kiki, and folded them one by one. Poplar Fruit didn't see that Duan Xueqing was standing there with a gloomy expression. Sit down, Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. Why are you still standing there? Duan Xueqing silently sat down on the stool next to the table, and didn't lean over. Let me tell you, Young Pi's Fantasy Drift, which is the book we are going to lobby for, is a good book. Poplar Fruit packed the clothes and said, It is a very unique adventure novel. In fact, it is not enough to describe it as adventure. It also contains elements of magic, suspense, and so on. Poplar Fruit said, Unfortunately, when the publisher brought it in, the translator ruined the book. If I were to read it, it would definitely be a super bestseller. Duan Xueqing didn't respond, and sat there gloomily. Poplar Fruit looked back at her and smiled. Why, don't you have confidence in me? Duan Xueqing shook her head and didn't speak. Don't worry, Poplar Fruit said confidently. According to my analysis of the author, this time we can definitely get him. Poplar Fruit packed the clothes and said a lot. He did a lot of research for this trip. Who knows, maybe Poplar Fruit is better than Yang. Martel himself knows him better. Can we not go? Duan Xueqing kept this sentence in her heart, and didn't say it out loud. Moreover, the more Poplar Fruit talked, the more she found it hard to say it out loud. Even if she said it out loud, it would probably be useless, right? Poplar Fruit had already prepared so seriously, and was so eager to persuade the author. How could he change his original plan, because of her words? However, if she didn't say it out loud, Duan Xueqing felt even more uncomfortable when she thought of the two of them going abroad, and the image of the two of them being inseparable appeared in her mind. So you and Mosquito just wait for my triumphant return. Poplar Fruit looked at Duan Xueqing confidently and said. Duan Xueqing forced a smile at him. By the way, have you eaten? Poplar Fruit asked. I haven't eaten yet. Why don't you wait for a while? I'll go and cook, and we can eat together later? Duan Xueqing wanted to say something, but stopped. After a moment of silence, she said, It's okay, I've already eaten. You can eat by yourself. Then I'll pack first and cook later. Poplar Fruit squatted down again, and started to tidy up the pile of clothes he carried out. Duan Xueqing forced a smile and said, I have to go back first. Ah, you just arrived and you're leaving already? Poplar Fruit had to stand up to send her off. Duan Xueqing was in a bad mood, She wanted to go back and be alone. She stood up shakily. She thought for a moment and added, "You can do it. Also have fun." With that, Duan Xueqing pushed open the door and walked out. Song Jiwen was just about to open the door and come in with Goldie in his arms. Duan Xueqing ignored him and didn't even say hello. Song Jiwen walked past Duan Xueqing in a daze, not knowing what he did wrong. Shaking his head, Song Jiwen walked in. "Goldie." Kiki's eyes were sharp. She first saw the little golden retriever wagging its tail in Song Jiwen's arms. She screamed and rushed over. The sound was so ear-piercing that Poplar Fruit had to rub his ears. Bang! Kiki's baby walker directly hit Song Jiwen's bare foot. Ouch! Song Jiwen was in so much pain that tears were about to fall, but he couldn't do anything to this little thing. He put down Goldie and rubbed it on tiptoe while punching Poplar Fruit. He scolded, "Look at how good your daughter is." Poplar Fruit laughed and supported him, letting him hit him. The fist fell on the arm, but it didn't hurt Poplar Fruit at all. Goldie was also very excited. It barked softly and ran to Kiki's feet. It found that the baby walker blocked its view. This was not a problem for Goldie. It jumped up with force. Kiki giggled and hugged Goldie with both hands. Goldie rubbed against her ear and hair intimately. Song Jiwen, who finally recovered, scolded, "This idiot is not even close to me. I raised it for a few days in vain." "Okay. Why are you jealous of Kiki?" Poplar Fruit held back his laughter, patted Song Jiwen's shoulder and said, "Is your foot okay?" "It's okay, just a little pain." Song Jiwen was annoyed by Kiki and forgot that he was ignored by Duan Xueqing. "Then hurry up and close the door, otherwise Kiki and Goldie will run away." Poplar Fruit pushed him and said. Song Jiwen closed the door and came back. Seeing Poplar Fruit's formation, he asked in surprise, "Packing so many things, are you moving?" It was the same question again. Poplar Fruit had to explain it to him again. "Going to America to have fun? That's awesome," Song Jiwen said enviously. "But why are you bringing so many things to America?" He was referring to Poplar Fruit's luggage that contained diapers and milk powder. "They are all for Kiki," Poplar Fruit said. "Are you stupid?" Song Jiwen slapped his forehead and was speechless. He said, "Don't they sell diapers and milk powder in America? Isn't it better over there?" Song Jiwen pointed at one of the cans of milk powder and said, "Here, this, I asked my friend to buy this from America. You still want to bring it to America?" "Yes." Poplar Fruit slapped his thigh. Why didn't he think of that? "Also, you are bringing so many things on the plane. Won't you have to go through a lot of procedures to get through the customs?" Song Jiwen added. "Okay, I got it." Poplar Fruit glanced at him and said, since they sold it over there, he didn't need to bring so many things. Poplar Fruit thought it was too heavy. Humming a song, Poplar Fruit carried cans of milk powder and bags of diapers out. F***CK, can you stop singing? It's horrible. Don't listen if you don't want to get lost. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 225. Before leaving, Poplar Fruit brought Goldie to Fong Beibei. "You have to come back soon." Fong Beibei hugged Goldie and rubbed its head. She sat on the rattan chair and said to Poplar Fruit, "Don't forget, you have a hostage." "Oh, the dog is in my hands." Poplar Fruit took out the dog food that Goldie ate from the bag he brought and laughed. "Take it away, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, this thing is either wasting food at home or gnawing on the shoes at home. I have long wanted to get rid of it." Bad dog father." Fong Beibei pulled Kiki over and said, "Kiki, why don't you go with Sister Beibei and ignore this bad father? Who knows when he'll sell you out too?" Kiki giggled and stretched out her small hand to grab Goldie's tail. Goldie shook and struggled desperately in Fong Beibei's arms. Fong Beibei couldn't hold it, so she had to put it down. Goldie immediately ran away as soon as it was on the ground. When Chi-Chi saw this, she squeaked and struggled free from Fong Beibei's grasp. She stood up and pushed the baby walker to chase after Goldie. "They are starting to become naughty," Fong Beibei said helplessly. "Yeah," Poplar Fruit said with deep understanding. I told you these two little guys are not worry-free. Oh right. Fong Beibei suddenly remembered something. She took out a stack of postcard-like things from the bag she brought and showed them off. She proudly said, "Look at what this is." Poplar Fruit walked over and took a look. He was surprised and asked, "Cards? You even made all of them?" "Yeah." Fong Beibei giggled. "Didn't you say that you're going to America? So I rushed it out so that you can take a look at it before you leave. You haven't rested well these past few days, right?" Looking at Fong Beibei's bloodshot eyes, Poplar Fruit was inexplicably moved. "Silly. Why are you in such a hurry? It's not like I'm not coming back." "Sigh. Are you still going to watch?" Fong Beibei saw that he was only staring at her while holding the card. She said unhappily, "It's a token of my appreciation. It took me a day to calculate, and I even asked my friend from the student union to find a printing shop that can print postcards. You should at least take a look." Poplar Fruit finally looked at it. It was printed quite well. It was made of the same material as a postcard, with a blue background on the back. The picture on the front was the same as the one he used to write his information. However, to make room for the description of the card, the picture was compressed very small. However, all the information was on the card, and it was clear at a glance. "Well done," Poplar Fruit praised. "No, it's actually very ordinary." At this time, Fong Beibei put her arms on the table and looked at Poplar Fruit. "I didn't even have time to typeset. Look, Mama Ma's words are so dense just like ants, and the picture is so small. I think this is already the best gift." Poplar Fruit touched the card and said affectionately, "Sigh, it's so mushy." Fong Beibei deliberately shivered. She arranged the things on the table and said, "Let's try it and see if it's fun." Poplar Fruit was about to sit next to Fong Beibei. Fong Beibei knocked on the table, pointed to the opposite side and said, "Go, go, go, sit over there. Do you want to peek at my cards?" Poplar Fruit had to sit over there. After sitting down, he asked, "There's only one deck of cards, how are we going to divide it?" This was a problem, because although the mercenary cards could be different, for some of the more basic cards, generally speaking, they must be equipped. "Oh yes. There's only one deck of cards, how are we going to divide it?" Fong Beibei smiled slyly and said, "Do you think you're smart?" From her school bag, she took out another deck of cards. The back of Poplar Fruit's card was light blue, and the one in Fong Beibei's hand was pink. "I made 2 decks," Fong Beibei said proudly. "No, it should be said that your deck and mine are a deck." Then there was no problem. First, he chose 30 cards to combine into his own deck. Poplar Fruit pondered for a moment, and pulled out 30 cards from it. Fong Beibei, on the other hand, had already played with it and picked out her own card deck with ease. "What are you?" Fong Beibei asked while holding her deck. "Warrior." Poplar Fruit smiled and pulled out Garrosh Hellraiser, which represented the warrior. Hellraiser, which was placed in front of him. "I'm an assassin." Fong Beibei also pulled out Valera Sanguiner. Valera Sanguiner opened it in front of him. Fong Beibei made the first move, so they began to play. The rules were designed by the two of them, so there was no need to explain at all. They skillfully drew their respective starting cards from their decks. Because she made the first move, Fong Beibei drew 3 cards, while Poplar Fruit drew 4 cards. This was because it was originally stipulated that whoever's turn to play could draw a card first. Poplar Fruit's extra card was his card for the next round. Fong Beibei held her chin and sighed. What's wrong? Was she discouraged from the beginning? Poplar Fruit felt a little inexplicable. The cards are not good. 3 of the 4 cards are high level. How can we play? Fong Beibei said with a pout. Poplar Fruit pondered for a moment and said, how about this, we'll add a rule. The starting card can be changed once. You can put the cards you don't want back into the deck, then shuffle the cards and draw again. You can discard a few cards and draw a few more. Why don't I draw a card first? Fong Beibei asked. I can put aside the cards that I want to discard, then draw them back and shuffle them again. What's the difference? Poplar Fruit asked doubtfully. There are more steps. Of course it's different. Fong Beibei explained. The probability is different before and after. She began to explain to Poplar Fruit the probability algorithm of the permutation combination. Poplar Fruit's head was about to explode. He quickly waved his hand and said, "Let's do as you say." In the first round, Poplar Fruit won easily. After all, he was the main designer of the card. With his familiarity with the card, it was easy for him to beat Fong Beibei, who was still trying to figure it out. Fong Beibei was not convinced. She picked up the cards that were put aside, removed the more useless cards in the deck, and replaced them with new cards. Poplar Fruit still used his set of warrior cards. His innate advantage was amazing. Poplar Fruit won the second and third round. However, he began to feel the strain. Yes, even though Poplar Fruit had an innate advantage, Fong Beibei had an even more powerful computing talent. Even if it was acquired experience and continuous learning, she could catch up very quickly. It was getting harder and harder for Poplar Fruit to win. Poplar Fruit felt that he would lose in less than 5 rounds. He rolled his eyes, put down the card and said, "It's getting late. I have to go. I have to catch a flight tomorrow." Fong Beibei opened her mouth to say something, but Poplar Fruit quickly stopped her and said, "You really can't play anymore. Look at your eyes. How tired are you? Hurry up and go rest." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the humble class. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 226. When they arrived at Beijing Airport, Zheng Yujie was already waiting there with a sign. She was still dressed like a queen with a windbreaker and sunglasses. This was the real Zheng Yujie. Because there was one less large suitcase, Poplar Fruit was much more relaxed. He used an airport trailer to pull the big and small suitcases and carried his daughter out. However, Zheng Yujie was not satisfied. She said, "Why are you bringing so many things when you're going out? Just take a card and buy whatever you need." Listening to her, she still had to help Poplar Fruit when they returned to her place. Poplar Fruit shrugged and prepared to put the suitcases in Zheng Yujie's trunk. How could a sports car like the Maserati fit in a small trunk? Zheng Yujie could only let Poplar Fruit put the small suitcase in the trunk and throw the big suitcase on the leather sofa in the back seat. This made Poplar Fruit scratch his head. The leather sofa was much more expensive than all the things in his suitcase. Only Zheng Yujie could think of using a Maserati to transport these things. In the car, Poplar Fruit carried his daughter and sat in the passenger seat. This was not safe, but there was no other way. The back seat was full. "Drive slower, there's a child." Poplar Fruit pulled up the seat belt and told Zheng Yujie, who was preparing to start the sports car. "Got it," Zheng Yujie said casually. Although Zheng Yujie did not seem to care, she still listened to Poplar Fruit's words. After starting the car, the speed was maintained at around 40 kilometers per hour. Coupled with the stable chassis of the Maserati, Poplar Fruit sat in the car with ease. After leaving Beijing Airport, Poplar Fruit frowned and subconsciously looked to the side. He had just felt that someone was spying on him. Ever since he found the strange person who was secretly following him at the teacher's apartment, Poplar Fruit no longer thought that his sixth sense was an illusion. This time, he also found a similarly expensive Ferrari sports car parked next to the airport intersection. "What are you looking at?" Zheng Yujie glanced at him and asked curiously. Poplar Fruit waited for a while. After confirming that the Ferrari was indeed following his car, he said to Zheng Yujie, "Someone is following us." Could it be that the strange man had followed them to the capital? There was no reason for that. First of all, Poplar Fruit didn't feel like he was being watched anymore. Secondly, how did that weirdo know that he was coming to the capital? Moreover, if he could afford such a good car, why would he follow him? When Zheng Yujie heard this, she glanced at the rearview mirror and gritted her teeth. F***ck, that bastard is following us again. Following behind her was Li Zichao. That day, Zheng Yujie had scolded him and thought that he would back down. She did not expect him to come back the next day after work. Today, she finally got rid of him and ran over to pick her up. She did not expect him to appear behind her again. "You know him?" Poplar Fruit asked. Zheng Yujie hesitated and said, "I guess so. A fly buzzing around me all day. It's so annoying." Poplar Fruit was amused by her. He laughed and said, "You are quite charming. There are flies following you." Zheng Yujie rolled her eyes at him and said, "Of course there are flies. I am young, beautiful, and rich. There is a strong group of people who are chasing me, okay?" Okay, you are awesome." Poplar Fruit gave her a thumbs up. "Then what about him?" Poplar Fruit pointed at the Ferrari behind them. "What else can I do? Lend me a fly swatter and swat him to death," Zheng Yujie said helplessly. "Just leave him be. I can't explain it to him. If he wants to follow, then let him follow. Treat him as heir." Originally, Zheng Yujie wanted to send Poplar Fruit to the hotel. However, she changed her mind and drove directly to her place. Poplar Fruit looked back and asked curiously. Poplar Fruit's memory was really amazing. He still remembered Zheng Yujie's driving route the last time they came. At the intersection just now, Zheng Yujie should have driven right. "Aren't we going to Beijing's visitor hotel?" Poplar Fruit asked. "Changing hotels again? Since we are flying to America tomorrow, you can stay at my place today." Zheng Yujie's ears were a little red. She did not dare to look at Poplar Fruit and said, "A stay at your place?" Poplar Fruit was stunned. "You don't like it?" Zheng Yujie pretended to be fierce as she continued. "I will stay at your place when I go to Guangzhou. You don't even want to stay at my place for a day?" "That's not what I meant." Poplar Fruit scratched his head. "Then what do you mean?" Zheng Yujie questioned. Since the girl didn't mind, why should he be bothered? "I just feel that it will be weird to stay at your place. After all, your family is there." Poplar Fruit scratched his head. "Then you don't have to worry about it." Zheng Yujie waved her hand and said generously, "I moved out on my own after I turned 18. Only my disappointing younger brother lived with his family, so the place you're going to is where I live alone. Now you can rest assured, right?" Zheng Yujie pressed the horn, and after 2 beeps, the gate of the residential area opened immediately. The security guard also recognized her luxury car, so he quickly opened the gate when he heard the sound. After the Maserati entered, Li Zichao's Ferrari wasn't as relaxed. When he drove to the gate, the security guards did not open the gate. Of course, when the security guards saw such a car, they did not dare to neglect it. They walked up and asked a few questions. When they knew that the car in front was following, they did not dare to ask any more questions and open the gate. With this delay, Li Zichao couldn't see where the car in front went. Luckily, the neighborhood wasn't big. He quickly saw Zheng Yujie and Poplar Fruit. Li Zichao saw Zheng Yujie carrying a child and a man following behind with 2 suitcases. The 2 of them entered a building one after another. His eyes were about to spit fire. Without needing to check, Li Zichao knew that the man was Poplar Fruit. He slammed the steering wheel and said, "I'll let you 2 be proud for 2 more days. Let's see how long you can laugh. Bastard couple." Ignoring Li Zichao, Poplar Fruit followed Zheng Yujie to her house. One person living in 3 rooms and 2 living rooms. Tfayeste. Poplar Fruit sighed after looking around. Zheng Yujie's house was nothing special. It didn't have the delicate decorations of a girl. Instead, it was similar to Poplar Fruit's house. There was a second bedroom that was used as a study room. There were many management books in it. This was what Poplar Fruit admired about Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie elbowed Poplar Fruit's ribs. She raised her head and stared into Poplar Fruit's eyes. She leaned close and said, "What? You're not convinced? If you're not convinced, bite me." Poplar Fruit could only raise his hands in surrender. "Your things have to be reorganized." Zheng Yujie held Kiki. She waved her arms exaggeratedly and said, "As long as you can buy it, leave it all for me. You're only allowed to bring a small suitcase." Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to buy the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 227. My name is Poplar Fruit. I didn't expect that I would be able to bring my big suitcase and board the plane to America as I wished. With a loud roar, a Boeing plane took off from the runway of the capital airport. The flashing wing lights flew across the cold night air and into the sky, leaving only such a fleeting sentence echoing in the void. Yes, after Poplar Fruit opened his small suitcase and told Queen Zheng that the clothes stuffed inside were personally made by the old man Artel, Queen Zheng compromised. It was unrealistic to only fit Poplar Fruit's belongings and Kiki's belongings into a small suitcase. She could only settle for the next best thing, which was to let Poplar Fruit stuff all the necessary things into the large suitcase. Why are you bringing so many Kiki's clothes over there? Leave one for exchange and make room for the rest. They'll be sold when we get off the plane. You can find baby supply stores everywhere in America. What are you worried about? Poplar Fruit still remembered how crazy Zheng Yujie was when she stuffed the clothes into her storage bag. It's okay. You can come and get them when you get back. If you can't take them with you, I'll send them to you via express delivery. Since they were sitting next to the window in the business class cabin, they could see the scenery outside the window. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki and looked at the scenery outside the window for a while. He looked at the brightly lit capital and the land of Zhonghua gradually disappearing under his feet. Then the world fell into endless darkness, except for the light from the plane itself. Of course, there were also stars. However, because the angle was very small and there were clouds, only a small part of it could be seen. At least, it was much clearer and more beautiful than the starry sky in capital and Yangcheng. The air pollution in the big city covered the starry sky with a thick layer of gauze. It was better to wait until the day to see it. Poplar Fruit carried Kiki back, who was still reluctant to leave, and covered himself with the blanket, preparing to go to sleep. Zheng Yujie, who was next to him, was experienced. She didn't rest much during the day and fell asleep early on the plane. Poplar Fruit woke up several hours later. However, his daughter was still sleeping. If he used the onboard player to watch a movie, the dazzling light would disturb her sleep. Therefore, Poplar Fruit couldn't move or do anything else for the time being. Bored, Poplar Fruit closed his eyes and started translating. He had read the book Teenage Pi's Fantasy Drifting before. He only needed to read one chapter to memorize the whole book. In the past, he had only tried to translate a few chapters, and there were still a lot of words that had not been processed. Now he could use it to pass the time. Time passed second by second. After an unknown period of time, a ray of light shone through the porthole. Poplar Fruit's eyelids twitched, and he woke up from his own world in his mind. The sun was coming out. Poplar Fruit could see that the sea of clouds in the distance was gradually emitting thousands of rays of light. What a sacred scene! The surrounding haze was gradually dispelled by the rays of light. The whole world seemed to be slowly waking up. It was once again covered in blue, white, and gold clothes. The moment the sun came out was not beautiful. There were not too many clouds to block it, and the light that shone directly was too dazzling. Many people in the cabin cried out in pain as their eyes were stung. Then everyone laughed in a low voice. It turned out that they were not the only ones who were watching the sunrise. Poplar Fruit closed the partition. The light was too strong. It was better not to let Kiki see. At this time, Zheng Yujie also woke up. She stretched lazily. The quilt on her body slid down, revealing her seductive curves. Rubbing her eyes, Zheng Yujie was still a little groggy. Her head leaned against the back of the chair, and she breathed softly. "Help me look after Kiki. I need to go to the toilet." Poplar Fruit whispered to Zheng Yujie. Walking to the toilet, Poplar Fruit was not in a hurry to go back. After sitting on the plane for so long, if he did not move, his body would become rusty. There was a small bar between business class and first class. A few guests who could not sleep were sitting there. Some ordered a cup of coffee and slowly sipped tea, while others were chatting. Poplar Fruit did not drink coffee. In the past, when he was cultivating a petty bourgeois relationship with Lu Yunran, he did drink it, but he did not drink it after that. He smiled and said to the flight attendant, "I want a cup of green tea." In his hand, there was a small glass cup with ice inside. This made Poplar Fruit a little speechless. Green tea with ice? What kind of drinking method was this? However, on the plane, Poplar Fruit was not so picky. Taking a sip, it was cool. It was a bit like the green tea drinks taken from the retail store's refrigerator. The taste was not bad. Poplar Fruit took another sip. Out of boredom, he raised his head and looked at the blonde foreigner beside him. "Professor Mills?" Poplar Fruit said in surprise. Of course he spoke in English. The foreigner was also surprised. He did not expect someone to recognize him on a plane from China. He turned his head to look at Poplar Fruit and asked curiously, "Friend, have we met before?" Of course, they had not met before. However, Poplar Fruit had seen the video of his TED Talk before. TED Talk was still unknown in China in 2012, except for university students who studied English. TED was an acronym for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. It was founded as early as 1984. Although it was unknown in China, it was famous abroad. They held a TED conference every year, now held in other cities around the world every 6 months, inviting the world's thought leaders and doers to share their passion for the cause. Those who had the opportunity to come to the TED conference to give a speech had extraordinary experiences. They were either leaders in a certain field, pioneers in a new field, or pioneers in certain innovative works that could change society. The fields involved were also constantly expanding. At this conference, one could see all kinds of ideas in almost all fields. It could be said to be a brainstorm, and it could also be said to be the origin of the dissemination of ideas. The free dissemination of ideas was the greatness of TED. The founder of TED once said, "Once, people in the knowledge economy said that you have to protect the knowledge that is as valuable as gold. That is your only value." However, when the whole world is connected, the rules of the game change. Everyone is connected, and everything will develop quickly. When knowledge is disseminated, it will reach all parts of the world at the fastest speed. It will receive feedback and be disseminated, and its potential value is invisible. However, Poplar Fruit did not think of this at the time, and neither did his teacher. When he was in university, the teacher of the listening class chose TED as a source material, and let the students dictate TED. The main reason was that he did not want them to feel that it was too boring. However, there were indeed many novel ideas in TED, and the students who studied English could not put them down. Even outside the classroom, there would be people who would hold the TED videos and watch them with great interest. Poplar Fruit was one of them. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 228. If he did not look up, Poplar Fruit would not have known that he was on the same flight as Professor Mills. He would not have had the opportunity to communicate with this thinker in close proximity. Who was Professor Mills? He was a professor of neuroscience at Harvard University, but the views he spread at the TED conference were not in the field of neuroscience. Poplar Fruit still remembered that the middle-aged professor stood on the stage in high spirits and showed the photos he took when he supported the hospital in Africa, calling people to pay attention to this almost forgotten corner. There was a lack of food and clothing, education, and medical resources. The big countries were plundering their mineral resources, but they never thought of leaving a little hope for this land. Why did they let their own kind live like beasts? Why didn't they try to understand this continent? Why did they only take and not give? Was this the indifference of a civilized society? Professor Mills's voice was deafening, and his tears moved countless audiences. After several years, Poplar Fruit could still recognize him. "Professor, I once saw your speech on the TED conference video," Poplar Fruit quickly said to Professor Mills. "Really? I didn't expect to have an audience in the distant East. It's nice to meet you." Professor Mills happily shook hands with Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, "It's nice to meet you too. Professor, your speech at the TED conference was really great," Poplar Fruit praised. "I can still remember what you said at that time." Poplar Fruit imitated Professor Mills vividly. Professor Mills laughed and said, "You imitated me so well. You're more like me than I am." "Professor, you're too kind," Poplar Fruit said. "By the way, Professor, the idea that medicine has no borders and doctors should circulate. How is it now?" Professor Mills was a little sad. He shook his head and said, "There's not much progress." After the TED conference, many friends from all over the world donated money, but it was just a drop in the bucket. This plan lacked the support of the country, and it was shelved after half a year. Actually, I shouldn't have mentioned this plan at the meeting. Professor Mills began to chat with Poplar Fruit. As if he had found a suitable person to talk to, he began to talk about his past. I should talk about my discoveries in neurology. Mr. Anderson, the founder of TED, told me to talk about my field of expertise. I think you speak very well, Poplar Fruit said, puzzled. No, that's not it. What I did very well was the scene of the African people in poverty that you saw. That's because I experienced it myself. I had a very deep understanding of it. What I'm talking about is that I haven't thought about this plan in depth and in a comprehensive manner. I only have a preliminary idea, and I'm being irresponsible to everyone, Professor Mills said. Then you can complete it after the conference. It won't conflict, Poplar Fruit said. Professor Mills shook his head and said, that's not the case. After half a year of practice, I realized that my plan was not feasible. Although it seemed ideal, when it was actually implemented, I realized that there were many mountains that could not be climbed or bypassed. At least you've tried. Poplar Fruit had to comfort the depressed middle-aged man in front of him. He said, even if it doesn't succeed now, you can still work hard to realize your idea when you find a better plan in the future, right? You're right. Professor Mills nodded and said, I recently came up with a new plan. When I find it feasible, I will bring it to the TED conference again and call for more people to join. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, good luck, Professor. Because your good luck will be the good luck of mankind. Professor Mills laughed and asked curiously, you speak English very well. Have you lived in the United States before? Or have you studied in the United States? No, this is my first time in the United States, and it's also my first time abroad. Poplar Fruit smiled and explained, as for why I speak English so well, it's because my profession is a translator. Poplar Fruit had heard this question from Professor Mills many times. Almost every time he met a foreigner, he had to explain it again. I see, Professor Mills praised. It's really rare to be able to speak English so fluently. I've also visited the Confucius Institute set up by China at Stanford University. The teachers there are not as good as you in English. That's because they have different positions. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I rely on English to make a living, while they spread our country's traditional culture abroad. Professor Mills shook his head and said, no, they have to learn English well if they want to spread your country's traditional culture. Otherwise, how can our children understand the content they speak? Poplar Fruit was a little angry. He thought to himself, must the Chinese teachers we send out know your language? Then why are there so few teachers from your country, who come to our country to be foreign teachers who know Chinese? Of course, he could not say that. Chinese and English could not be discussed at the same level. It was not that English was very advanced, but in the big picture, English did have its advantages. Their country was strong, and there were many people all over the world who spoke English, so you had to learn English. It was a kind of semi-passive communication. What about Chinese? Chinese needed to be actively promoted. If you want others to accept and learn this language, you need a lot of output. These output people did not understand English, and could not communicate with others. How could they continue? Therefore, what Professor Mills said made sense in reality. Professor Mills looked at Poplar Fruit and smiled. This time I went to Beijing to participate in the conference, and I felt the depth of Chinese culture. This is something you can't see in the United States. The books about your country, or your country's own cultural books, are too obscure abroad. I don't know if it's a translation problem, or you guys don't pay attention to their overseas publication. But if we can't see it, it's hard for us to understand you. Professor Mills said, actually, we all want to know what the mysterious countries in the East are like. When you guys are trying to promote the Confucius Institute to spread your culture, you have neglected this might be the most effective way. Professor Mills said this to Poplar Fruit. He was just chatting with Poplar Fruit and exchanging their views. He did not expect that his views had left a deep impression on Poplar Fruit. The power of ideas could change the world, even if it was just an insignificant idea. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 229. Other than Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie, there was also one of Zheng Yujie's assistant editors, a young girl. The girl wore a pair of thick and big glasses. She was dressed smartly but did not know how to match her outfit. If she wore braces, she would look exactly like the Iron Teeth girl in the movies. Of course, the three of them would not be the only ones on this trip. Dongxin Publishing had already sent 2 staff members over there. The 2 staff members had already arranged for them to stay in the U.S. When the plane arrived at the Big Apple, the 2 staff members were already there to pick them up. They did not rent a car because even if they rented a car, they would not be able to drive it on the road. After all, the driving style and traffic rules in the U.S. and China were very different. The hotel they booked was called Georgetown Holiday Inn. The price was moderate and not too luxurious. However, the hotel's decoration was quite stylish and would not be looked down upon by others. After all, it was a business trip, and some things had to be dressed up. Martel was not in a hurry to meet Yang. The staff had communicated with Martel earlier, and both parties agreed to meet in the afternoon of the day after tomorrow. There was still more than a day left. Poplar Fruit planned to bring Kiki around the biggest metropolis in the U.S. Zheng Yujie, on the other hand, volunteered to be the tour guide as she had studied in the U.S. before, and was quite familiar with the Big Apple. There were many famous tourist attractions in the Big Apple. The Statue of Liberty that was almost 100 meters tall was a must, but there were many other places. For example, Broadway, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Fifth Avenue, Wall Street, Times Square, Central Park, the Empire State Building, and so on. If one counted with one's fingers, they would not be able to finish it all in one day. On the first day, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie only had enough time to go to the Statue of Liberty. Fortunately, the weather was good. They took the elevator from the bottom of the bronze statue to the top of the pedestal. Then, they followed the spiral staircase and climbed more than 100 to 200 steps to reach the crown of the Statue of Liberty. Standing at a height of more than 100 meters, one could look into the distance through a small iron window. This was a very good phrase. Standing at a height of more than 100 meters, one could look into the distance through a small iron window. The skyscrapers of Manhattan in the east were like a forest of steel and concrete. And those skyscrapers were not shorter than the Statue of Liberty, which showed how magnificent it was. The Big Apple Bay in the south was sparkling, and speedboats, yachts, fishing boats, and so on were scattered on the vast surface of the water, inexplicably giving off a majestic feeling of thousands of sails in the age of navigation. After returning to the hotel, Poplar Fruit could not fall asleep for a long time. His heart was still filled with the shock of this big city. Compared to the vitality of the Big Apple, the villages and unfinished buildings that could be seen everywhere in Yangqing felt like an old man past his prime. Of course, the comparison couldn't be made this way. Yangqing had thousands of years of history and culture, which gave people a heavy feeling. Behind the twilight years, there were also great ambitions waiting for an opportunity to rise again. After seeing the Statue of Liberty, Poplar Fruit planned to visit other attractions in the Big Apple the next day. But plans could never keep up with changes. Kiki didn't know if it was because she was not acclimatized, but when she woke up the next day, she vomited and had diarrhea. She vomited out all the rice and milk that she ate, and the stench from her diarrhea was yellow. She also changed her diaper nonstop. She couldn't eat anymore. She was hungry and had too much diarrhea. Her little butt was red and painful. Chi-Chi's heart-wrenching cries broke Yangguo's heart. After struggling in the hotel for more than an hour, Poplar Fruit did not notice any improvement. He anxiously carried his daughter out of the hotel and hailed a taxi to the nearest children's hospital. "Bro, your child doesn't look well." The black driver looked at the rearview mirror and said. It was unknown if all black people had a gift for talking, but when he casually said a sentence, it was as if he was humming a song. "Bro, please drive faster." Poplar Fruit told him about Kiki's symptoms and anxiously urged him. "No problem. You can't find anyone in Queens who can drive as fast as me, Big 8. The black man boasted proudly. His hands and feet were not exaggerated. He stepped on the gas and the car sped out. He didn't speed up, but he was like a flexible snake, twisting left and right in the crowded traffic. Every time he encountered a red light, he could drive out the moment the light flashed. "We're here." The taxi drifted at the entrance of the hospital, and then steadily stopped. Bro, good driving. It was $60. Poplar Fruit directly gave him a franklin, patted him on the shoulder and said, "The rest is a tip." Hey! The black man shouted and stretched an arm out of the window. His thumb and index finger made a gun gesture, and pointed at Poplar Fruit. He opened his mouth and revealed his white teeth. Bro, good luck. When they arrived at the children's hospital, Poplar Fruit had to go through a lot of procedures and pay a lot of money, because he didn't have American medical insurance. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to carry Kiki, whose face was haggard from the diarrhea, and run up and down anxiously. Finally, he made an appointment with a doctor for her. While waiting in line, Zheng Yujie and the others finally arrived. How is it? Zheng Yujie had just woken up when she received the news. Her hair was in a mess, and her previous neat and capable image was completely destroyed. However, she didn't care so much. She ran over and asked while gasping for breath. Not yet. Poplar Fruit frowned and shook his head and said, "We haven't even seen the doctor yet. It's so troublesome to see a doctor in America." Zheng Yujie sighed. If they were in Beijing, let alone going to the hospital, she could just call the doctor and ask for a diagnosis. Finally, it was Kiki's turn. The doctor said that it might be caused by a bacterial infection and needed to be tested before further treatment. The test would take a few hours. When Yanghua heard this, she almost went berserk. She wanted to punch this young doctor who didn't have any hair on his mouth. After leaving the doctor's office, Poplar Fruit frowned and asked Zheng Yujie, "What should we do? How many more hours do we have to wait? Kiki can't wait any longer. She hasn't eaten anything for the whole morning." Zheng Yujie was also at her wit's end. In America, she would buy her own medicine for minor illnesses and visit the doctor for major illnesses. How much experience did she have in dealing with hospitals? A staff member who followed them looked around and whispered to Zheng Yujie and Poplar Fruit in Chinese, "Why don't we go and see a Chinese doctor?" "Chinese doctor?" Poplar Fruit asked in surprise. "There are Chinese doctors in Big Apple." "Hey, don't underestimate us Chinese." The staff member smiled and said, "Don't mention Chinese doctors. In Chinatown, you can find fortune tellers and candy makers." "Then what are we waiting for? Take us there quickly." Poplar Fruit was already as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Zheng Yujie patted the staff member and said on his behalf, "A big wave of Kiki is coming. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. In the new month, looking for everyone's support." Chapter 230. Papa. Sitting in the taxi again, Kiki gently hugged her father's neck and whispered, Poplar Fruit stroked the hair on the back of Kiki's head and asked softly, "What's wrong?" "Pain." Kiki blinked her eyes, and another drop of tear rolled down and said weakly. She was no longer crying as desperately as she did in the hotel, but the tears still fell on Poplar Fruit's neck, breaking into several pieces. "Where does it hurt? Does your butt hurt or your stomach hurt?" Poplar Fruit asked with heartache. "But." Chi-Chi pouted and tried her best not to cry out loud. Wait, we will soon find a doctor to cure you." Poplar Fruit kissed his daughter's little face, mottled with tears and a little cold. "Kiki, don't cry. Dad knows that Kiki is very strong, right?" "Yes." Kiki's eyes were filled with tears, but she still nodded vigorously. "How much longer?" Poplar Fruit asked anxiously, because he asked the driver he used English. 10 minutes. This time the driver was white, and the answer was much more concise. Chinatown was in Manhattan. From Queens to Manhattan, it was generally very fast to take the subway. If they drove, they had to cross the Queens Bridge, and some blocks had to be bypassed. In any case, they arrived at Chinatown. When they arrived at the archway, the staff asked them to get off. "It's faster to walk down there than to take the car." The staff laughed. Chinatown was actually very large, covering more than 40 streets. If they were to find a person in it, it would undoubtedly be like looking for a needle in a haystack. But fortunately, the staff was more familiar with this area, and took them through 2 bustling streets. Chinatown had all kinds of antique Chinese buildings, but Poplar Fruit was not in the mood to appreciate it. He didn't even want to take a quick look. He just urged the staff to hurry up, because when Kiki just got off the car, she had diarrhea again. She felt very uncomfortable and was about to cry. Here we are. The staff led them to a shop with the traditional Chinese sign, Tang's Traditional Chinese Medicine Clinic, and Poplar Fruit strode in. Uncle Tang, come and help my friend's child. Today her stomach is not feeling well, and she vomits and has diarrhea. The staff greeted the doctor inside. The doctor was in his 40s or 50s, wearing a traditional robe and a pair of round-framed glasses, looked up at Kiki and Poplar Fruit's arms, stood up and said, "The child is too young, she is too young, and she can't be delayed, come and let me see her." Dr. Tang was the first person who could tell Kiki's age at a glance without knowing it. After all, Kiki grew up very quickly. Looking at her appearance, she was almost the same age as a 1 or 2-year-old child. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but trust him a little. "Mr. Tang, let me change the child's diaper first. She just had diarrhea again," Poplar Fruit said. "It's okay, it's just diarrhea. Let me see." The doctor patted the square table and said, "Let her lie on it." Poplar Fruit had to put Kiki on it, but the weak Kiki was particularly dependent on her father at this time, and she was unwilling to leave her father's arms for a moment. Poplar Fruit persuaded her in every way possible, and agreed to let her hold his hand. Only then did Kiki agree to lie down obediently. Dr. Tang took Kiki's pulse and checked Kiki's tongue. He also asked Poplar Fruit about the situation and symptoms. "It's not a big problem." Dr. Tang withdrew his hand and said with a smile, "Traveling to and fro many places, and the climate change caused her to catch a cold and have diarrhea. She's not acclimatized to the climate, but this diarrhea is accompanied by vomiting. It's a little serious, and she can't eat. Her body is weak, and in the long run it will cause other diseases." Seeing Dr. Tang writing on a light yellow paper, Poplar Fruit asked, "Mr. Tang, do you need to give her any medicine? Does she need an injection?" Dr. Tang looked at Poplar Fruit and said, "I'm in a Chinese medicine clinic, and I don't give injections. Turn right after the injection, and there's a Western medicine hospital 2 blocks away." His temper was really strange, and his face turned cold at the slightest disagreement. Poplar Fruit awkwardly smiled and said, "No, she doesn't need an injection. Aren't I in a hurry? She hasn't eaten anything for the entire morning, and she vomited everything she ate." Dr. Tang's face eased up a little as he pointed at the prescription in his hand and said, "This is the umbilical paste. It's specifically for your daughter's symptoms. It can stop vomiting and diarrhea, and it will take effect in half an hour. This medicine is for the body. The child is too young, and her illness is serious. She needs to take some to regulate her internal organs to prevent any residual damage. You can apply the umbilical paste on the child now, and feed her some liquid food half an hour later. Make the porridge soft and don't feed her milk. It's not nutritious enough," Dr. Tang patiently said to Poplar Fruit. "The medicine will start tonight, and she will have to drink half a bowl in the morning and evening." Poplar Fruit seriously listened and wrote it down. Zheng Yujie also took out her notebook and helped Poplar Fruit write it down. "There's licorice in the medicine, but it's still a little bitter, and the child might not be willing to drink it. But good medicine is bitter, so she still needs to drink enough. Don't let her vomit it all out," Dr. Tang said. Poplar Fruit had never fed Kiki Chinese medicine. In the past, when she was sick, she would get injections, drink cough syrup, and so on. Thinking about the torment of drinking Chinese medicine when he was young, Poplar Fruit had a bad feeling. "Is there anything special about the porridge?" Zheng Yujie asked. "There's nothing special about it. Just don't let it be hard. Tear the vegetables and lean meat into shreds and put them in to cook. If it's not soft, just take it out." Dr. Tang smiled and said, "Nowadays, children are very precious. In the difficult times in the past, didn't they eat whatever they had?" In the backyard of the clinic, Poplar Fruit helped Kiki put on the umbilical paste and stayed there for observation. He didn't stay idle either. He helped Kiki wipe her butt and put on a clean diaper. Looking at Kiki's red and swollen butt, Poplar Fruit's heart ached. "You can give the child a massage. It can make her better sooner," Dr. Tang finished his work and came to Poplar Fruit's side to guide him. Push the plank door, which is the thenar area of the 2 hands. Massage the foot 3 li here. Push up the 7 joints, the lumbosacral area from the baby's buttocks. 5 inches. About 100 to 200 times for each part. Combined with 6 back massages, it's good for regulating the spleen, stomach, and body's yin and yang. All the treatment methods and symptoms in this chapter are either from the internet or Xiaohan's nonsense. Please don't copy. Oh, intersection. Oh, Poplar Fruit tried it on Kiki. It seemed to be effective. After a while, Kiki's frowning eyebrows slowly relaxed, and her stomach didn't continue to squirm and cause diarrhea. It seemed that the situation was indeed getting better. Chinese medicine was still reliable at critical times. Did everyone like this chapter? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, begging for everyone's support in the new month. Chapter 231. Kiki, does it still hurt? Poplar Fruit held Kiki in his arms. His daughter used to smell like milk, but now she smelled like Chinese medicine, which made Poplar Fruit feel sorry for her. He touched his daughter's temperature with his hand. Fortunately, it was normal. Kiki didn't answer. She grabbed her father's clothes with her small hand and shook her head gently. Poplar Fruit was happy. It seemed that she was getting better. He was in a hurry to go out and didn't bring a small quilt. He was afraid that the wind would blow his daughter, so he took off his coat and held his daughter in the middle to warm her with his body temperature. Kiki, are you hungry? Poplar Fruit asked softly. Yes. Kiki looked up at her father with a little desire in her eyes and said, Kiki wants to drink milk. Poplar Fruit stroked her little head with his big hand and said, Not yet. You'll have a stomachache if you drink milk. When we go back to the hotel, I'll cook some porridge for you, okay? Kiki didn't say anything and just nodded. Poplar Fruit picked up his daughter and let Dr. Tang check her again. Dr. Tang took Kiki's pulse carefully and nodded with a smile. Don't worry. She's fine now. She's just a little weak. She'll be fine after taking some medicine and food. Just as he was about to go back, Zheng Yujie and her assistant, who had disappeared earlier, walked in from the main door, each carrying a plastic soup container. She smiled and said to Dr. Tang, Uncle Tang, let me borrow your backyard to feed the child. Dr. Tang raised his eyelids and waved his hand to let them go. I bought porridge for you and Kiki. Zheng Yujie whispered to Poplar Fruit. Thank you. Poplar Fruit said, I don't mind. I'm not hungry even if I miss one meal. Is Kiki's porridge done yet? Zheng Yujie smiled and said, Don't worry. The reason why I went out for so long was to wait for the kanji shop's waiter to cook the porridge. I also followed the doctor's instructions and added some shredded meat and vegetables. Poplar Fruit held Kiki and watched Zheng Yujie open the box of porridge for Kiki. The rice grains are soft. Zheng Yujie checked. Do you think the shredded meat is up to standard? Poplar Fruit thought for a moment and was still a little worried. He said, Her stomach has just recovered. I'm afraid that she still can't digest the shredded meat. Anyway, the nutrients have already been cooked into the porridge. Just pick out the shredded meat and vegetables. Zheng Yujie nodded, picked up a pair of chopsticks, squatted by the side and carefully picked. The glasses girl's assistant wanted to help, but was sent out by Zheng Yujie. Go eat with our FA. You've been running around with us all morning. Go quickly. Perhaps because she was starving, Kiki didn't need to be persuaded and obediently ate the porridge her father fed her. In fact, the porridge was quite fragrant. Poplar Fruit's hungry stomach roared when he smelled it. Haha. Zheng Yujie laughed without caring about her image. She sat on the stone chair next to her and leaned forward and back. Do you want me to feed you? Poplar Fruit ignored her and only replied, Don't. If you come over again, you'll be more of a hindrance. Kiki was full. She asked her father to wipe his mouth clean and drink some warm water to rinse his mouth. Then, she quietly lay in her father's arms and closed her eyes to rest. After a whole morning of running around, the little girl was mentally exhausted. Poplar Fruit was starving. He picked up the big box of porridge Zheng Yujie bought and was about to eat when he suddenly stopped. He looked at Zheng Yujie and asked, "You haven't eaten either, right?" "It's okay. I'll eat when I get back to the hotel." Zheng Yujie waved her hand and said. Poplar Fruit directly took half of the big box of porridge and put it into Kiki's small box. Then he pushed the rest in front of Zheng Yujie and put in the clean spoon that hadn't been eaten yet. He said seriously, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and eat some." After that, he picked up Kiki's small box of porridge and wolfed it down. Zheng Yujie, on the other hand, curled her lips and said, "Why are you so fierce?" But she still sat down obediently. She picked up the small spoon with one hand and gracefully drank the porridge inside. "I'm sorry." Poplar Fruit, because he was holding his daughter, could only put down the bowl and chopsticks and let Zheng Yujie, the official N generation, help him clean up. He suddenly said, "What are you sorry for?" Zheng Yujie stopped, her red phoenix eyes opened wide, and looked at Poplar Fruit strangely. "I have a lot of things to do. I made you accompany me. I was going to play, but it's all ruined," Poplar Fruit said in a low voice with an apologetic face. At this time, Kiki was so tired that she fell asleep. He didn't dare to speak too loudly. "What's wrong with that?" Zheng Yujie said with a smile. "I'm also playing with you. If you don't go, I'm too lazy to go to so many places. Moreover, it's not like I haven't been to these places before. Later, when you come to Guangdong Province, I'll take you to the fun places in Guangdong Province," Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "When you come, you stay at my house, or you're in a hurry. I haven't done my duty as a landlord." "All right." Zheng Yujie looked at him with a fiery gaze. She smiled and said, "As long as I'm with you, it's the same wherever I go." Poplar Fruit felt that Zheng Yujie's words had a strange meaning, which sounded a little strange and ambiguous. But at this time, he couldn't help but think about it. His daughter's illness was still flickering in his eyes. If his daughter didn't recover, he wouldn't be able to focus on other things. When he returned to the hotel, it was already afternoon, because tomorrow afternoon he was going to Laobiang. Martel, Poplar Fruit, and Zheng Yujie were in the living room of Poplar Fruit's room with a computer. Kiki was sleeping in the room, and Poplar Fruit's ears were pricked up, so he could hear any movement. "Can your plan work?" Zheng Yujie held Poplar Fruit's list of key points and arguments on the computer, and asked doubtfully, "He's a foreigner. Can he understand your translation?" "He can't understand it, but isn't he on a lecture tour?" Poplar Fruit laughed. "It's easy to find someone who understands Chinese to help him read it. I believe that this plan will succeed." "You think we can't convince him?" Zheng Yujie asked doubtfully. "No, that's not what I mean. Our persuasion will have a great effect," Poplar Fruit said. "But he didn't have a good cooperation with the domestic publishing house before. Even if we have a glib tongue, he will still have some misgivings. Then we'll take out some solid stuff to show him, and use facts to prove our strength. This will be our finishing touch." "Okay, then we'll follow your plan." Zheng Yujie's finger gently tapped on the laptop, and she sat up straight and said, "It's still early to eat. Why don't you treat me as Yang? Martel, see if you can convince me?" "No problem." Poplar Fruit smiled, stood up and adjusted the tie on his collar with both hands, and his whole body was bursting with strong confidence. "Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk." Chapter 232. After dinner at the hotel, Poplar Fruit took out a bag of herbs and asked IFA to find someone to boil it into a decoction. IFA was an overseas employee of Dongxin Publishing. He came to Big Apple to study when he was in high school. He was also a smooth and slick person. In less than an hour, he brought back the decoction in a thermos flask. The decoction was black and smelled a little sour. Poplar Fruit had not touched Chinese medicine for many years. When he smelled it, the tragic memories of his childhood were still vivid in his mind. Poplar Fruit knew that this would be a tug of war. So he asked IFA to boil more than a bowl of water, and was prepared for Kiki to spit out half of it. At night, Kiki's spirit had recovered a lot. She was very obedient when it came to eating. Poplar Fruit could not bear to let Kiki drink such disgusting Chinese medicine. However, just as Dr. Tang said, good medicine was bitter, so she had to drink this Chinese medicine. Kiki had suffered so much in the morning. She needed to recuperate her stomach. Before feeding Kiki, Poplar Fruit tasted a small mouthful of the decoction. It was so bitter that he frowned. This won't do. Kiki would definitely not be able to drink it. Poplar Fruit asked the hotel waiter for 2 small bags of white sugar and poured it in. The taste was very strange, but it diluted the bitterness slightly. After waiting for a while, the decoction had become much colder. If he did not let Kiki drink it now, it would be even more disgusting when it became cold later. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter over and placed a clean towel under Kiki's chin. Then he used a small spoon to scoop up half a spoonful of the decoction, coaxing Kiki to open her mouth. Kiki did not know that Chinese medicine was disgusting. She thought it was just plain water, so she opened her mouth and let her father feed her the medicine. When the medicine touched Kiki's tongue, it was as if she had just swallowed a fly. Her brows instantly knitted together, and she opened her mouth to spit out the dark yellow medicine from the corner of her mouth. Cough. Chi-Chi spat out the rest of the medicine. Then, her tears flowed down her face and mixed with the medicine she spat out, causing her face to be covered in traces of water. Poplar Fruit had already expected this scene. He quickly pulled up a towel and wiped the medicine off Kiki's chin. Just as he was about to feed her again, Kiki refused to open her mouth no matter what he said. She twisted her face and spilled the 2 spoonfuls of soup that Poplar Fruit had prepared. It was useless to coax her. Kiki refused to let go. Tears flowed down her face, but she refused to cry out loud. She was afraid that if she opened her mouth even a little, it would give her father an opportunity to stuff the bitter medicine into her mouth. Poplar Fruit held the spoon and shook it in front of Kiki. He said, "Kiki, listen to your father. Drink some Chinese medicine, and you will be completely better. It's not bitter. Dad put sugar in it. Look, Dad can drink it." Poplar Fruit scooped up a spoonful of the medicine and put it into his mouth. He drank it for Kiki to see. "I'm really not afraid. Close your eyes and you will drink it immediately. If you don't drink it, your stomach will still hurt. Do you want to have diarrhea and pain in your butt like this morning?" Poplar Fruit scooped up another spoonful of medicine and put it in front of Kiki's mouth. However, no matter what Poplar Fruit said, Kiki closed her mouth tightly and shook her head like a rattledrum. Looking at Kiki's unwilling to cooperate, Poplar Fruit was really at his wit's end. The medicine was getting cold little by little. He anxiously scratched his head. At this time, if Fong Beibei was here, she would definitely think of a way, right? "How is it?" Zheng Yujie pushed open the door and walked in. "Did Kiki drink the medicine?" "No." Poplar Fruit sighed and shook his head. "Chinese medicine is very unpleasant to drink. Did you add sugar?" Zheng Yujie asked. "I did, but it didn't help. She drank it and spit it out again. Now she won't open her mouth," Poplar Fruit said. "But she has to drink it." "No," Kiki suddenly shouted at this time. She covered her mouth with her small hands and cried. Zheng Yujie also had no other way. She was used to being strong, but that was only for adults. For a Kiki who couldn't even speak a complete sentence, how could she do anything? "In the past, it was the wet nurse who lied to us. After drinking Chinese medicine, there would be candy to eat," Zheng Yujie recalled. But it seems that it didn't have any effect on Kiki. That's right, Chi-Chi had never eaten candy before. There was nothing particularly attractive to her that could tempt her to open her mouth. Coercion and bribery. If the soft approach didn't work, could it be that the hard approach was the only way? Touching the bowl that was still a little warm, Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and said, "I'll hold her down. You come over and help me feed her." Zheng Yujie was shocked and said, "Will this work?" Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, "No, this is the only way. There is no better way." He began to take Kiki's small hands off her mouth and clamped them with one arm. Wow. Kiki seemed to feel that something was wrong. She struggled desperately, and a lot of strength burst out from her small body. However, it was Poplar Fruit who was controlling her. Poplar Fruit firmly held his daughter down and refused to let go. Because it was clamped, Kiki's arm wouldn't be dislocated because of twisting, which made Poplar Fruit a little relieved. "Quick!" Poplar Fruit shouted at Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie hesitantly walked over, picked up the bowl and sat next to him. She scooped up the medicine with a spoon, and then looked at Poplar Fruit. Wait a minute. Poplar Fruit thought for a moment. It seemed that something was wrong because Kiki was crying. What if she directly poured it in and choked on the trachea? He tried hard to recall the parenting books he had read before, and then read it to Zheng Yujie. Hold the child diagonally. Use one hand to pinch the child's cheeks to open her mouth. Then put the spoon in her mouth, slightly press her tongue and lower gums, and slowly pour in the medicine. When the medicine is completely swallowed, let go of the hand pinching her cheeks and take out the spoon. Feed her the medicine intermittently in this way until the medicine is finished. Poplar Fruit finished reading and then said, "Let's change positions." He held Kiki diagonally. At this time, Kiki was struggling so hard that her mouth was closed. Her tears covered her eyes and eyelashes. Poplar Fruit gently pinched Kiki's cheeks to open her mouth. "Put the spoon in and remember to press down on your tongue," Poplar Fruit said. Zheng Yujie was a little nervous. She put the spoon in and pressed down on her tongue to pour in the medicine. Before Kiki swallowed it, she pulled the spoon out. Kiki whimpered and spat out the medicine with her tongue. "It's okay. Let's do it again." Poplar Fruit let go of Kiki's mouth and comforted Zheng Yujie. Then he wiped the spit out of her mouth. Zheng Yujie gathered her courage and did it again. This time, Kiki was forced to swallow the medicine, but her face was full of bitterness. It was funny and pitiful. "That's great. Hurry up and do it again." Poplar Fruit struck while the iron was hot. He let Zheng Yujie do it a few times and finish feeding the remaining half of the medicine. He forced Kiki to finish the medicine, but Kiki still cried for a long time. She even looked at her father with a faint resentment in her eyes for a long time. This father was too bad. Woo-woo. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 233. How is it? Is the equipment working as usual? Poplar Fruit asked in a low voice. No problem, the video is playing very clearly. Zheng Yujie's assistant, the bespectacled girl, made an okay hand gesture. What about her? Did you notice anything unusual? Poplar Fruit asked. No, she's quietly playing with her toys in the crib. She only watches TV occasionally, the bespectacled girl said seriously. Zheng Yujie took Poplar Fruit's phone and said to the front camera, "Then I'll leave Kiki to you. Take good care of her. Don't let anything happen to her." Yes, boss, the bespectacled girl said seriously. After turning off FaceTime, Poplar Fruit breathed a sigh of relief. Sitting in the rented car, he felt a little relieved. They were going to meet Yang today? Martel and Kiki definitely couldn't follow them, and Poplar Fruit was a little worried about Kiki, who had just recovered from a serious illness. He made several video calls along the way. This time, the bespectacled girl stayed in the hotel to take care of Kiki, but Poplar Fruit knew that with Kiki's personality, she would definitely cry if she couldn't see him. So early in the country, he recorded a 3-hour video and played it on the hotel's big screen TV. This would give Kiki the illusion that her father was still by her side. He didn't know if this method was effective, because the last time he used it was half a year ago. Now that Kiki had grown up a lot and was smarter, it was still unknown if it could fool her. However, according to the bespectacled girl's report, Kiki was still very receptive to this method. She was able to play with her toys quietly, which meant that she was in a good mood. Even the bitter Chinese medicine forced on her in the morning didn't leave a shadow in her heart. Yang Martel was giving a speech at a high school in Queens in the morning. In the afternoon, he promised to take 2 hours to meet them. Foreigners always valued punctuality as important as their lives, so Poplar Fruit couldn't be late. Poplar Fruit and the others had already arrived at the school half an hour earlier. The meeting location was a small office borrowed by the school. After getting permission, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie walked in. Poplar Fruit walked behind them, holding a briefcase in his hand. He even helped close the door, just like a secretary. In fact, this was a habit left by Poplar Fruit when he used to work in a foreign trade company. Yang Martel was a typical Western bookworm. His body and cheeks were very thin, and his eyes were very narrow, giving people a feeling that they were sunken in. He was wearing a long-sleeved light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Yang noticed this detail and secretly let out a sigh of relief. I guessed right, this is young Martel. Martel is a man who does more than he talks. Nice to meet you. Martel did not pretend to be polite. He stood up from behind the table and shook hands with Poplar Fruit and the rest. Young Martel was a French Ghanaian. But because his father was a diplomat, he had lived abroad when he was young. So his English accent was very strange. Poplar Fruit felt that it was not the Ghanaian accent he had heard before. The main negotiator was not Poplar Fruit, but Zheng Yujie. Zheng Yujie was not fighting for the limelight, but she wanted to follow Yang. Martel was going to introduce Dongxin Publishing's capabilities to Yang. Martel listed out the benefits and reasons for choosing them. Zheng Yujie's spoken English was not bad. After all, she had studied in the US for 4 years. Her vocabulary might be slightly flawed, but she could speak fluently. Her pronunciation was comfortable, and she did not have a strange Chinglish accent. When Zheng Yujie was speaking, Poplar Fruit was observing Yang from the side. From Martel's expression, he realized that it was just as he had expected. Zheng Yujie's words didn't have much of an effect on him. Sure enough, after listening to Zheng Yujie patiently, Yang Martel shook his head and said, Dongxin Publishing does have a high status and market share in China. But as far as I know, the Chinese Yilin publishing house that I had chosen previously is also good at publishing foreign language books. They could not make my books sell well, and I have no reason to believe that you can do better. Zheng Yujie felt that she could still work harder. She analyzed the differences between Dongxin Publishing and Yilin Publishing House from different angles. But Yang? Martel waved his hand and said, You don't have to say these. I can understand from the information you gave me in the past. But this is not enough for me to give my books to you. If there is no better reason, I think our meeting today will end here. Zheng Yujie turned her head and looked at Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit knew that it was time for him to go on stage. Yang? Mr. Martel, instead of letting your books remain unknown in China, why don't you try another publishing house? Poplar Fruit stood up and said to Yang, who was about to leave. Martel said loudly, Yang. Martel hesitated for a moment and stopped. He looked at Poplar Fruit doubtfully and said, Excuse me, may I ask who you are? Sorry, if I remember correctly, Miss Zheng did not introduce you just now. Poplar Fruit, you can also call me by my English name, Leon. If you give your books to our publishing house, then I will be the translator of this book. Poplar Fruit confidently said to Yang. Martel said, Mr. Leon, you look a little young. When Martel said this, his expression wasn't one of disdain. Instead, it was one of interest. Youth is not a factor to deny a person's ability, isn't it? Poplar Fruit said with a smile, Just like in your book, a young PI can fight with a tiger in the Pacific Ocean at a young age. I think, in your heart, you also agree with this point of view. Oh, you are right. Yang. Martel said with a smile, Then I can give you a chance to persuade me. With a chance to speak, there is hope for success. Poplar Fruit stepped forward and put his briefcase on Yang. Martel sat on the table in front of him and said with a smile, Actually, I have not fully introduced myself. I am a literary translator. Of course, I just started. As for why I have the confidence to sit in front of you, Poplar Fruit paused and said, That is because at the end of last year, I was the main translator and translated the book, The Biography of Steve Jobs. This book also happened to be the bestseller last year. Its sales performance in just 2 months has already surpassed other imported foreign books. Poplar Fruit said it very straightforwardly. If it was in China, there might be people who slammed the table and said that Poplar Fruit was too arrogant. But this was the communication habit of Westerners. They did not like others to beat around the bush and beat around the bush. Especially for Yang, who paid more attention to practical results. For Martel, this way of talking made him feel more comfortable. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to *, that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.